Ladies and gentlemen, coming from you live from a new studio space that I have been working on for all day yesterday, literally all freaking day. How is everyone doing? Yeah, I'm not completely done, obviously. Still have some space back here that I want to... yeah, look at this fucking sign, though, that I need to decorate a little bit, including the one that you can't see the top of over there. That's like an old sign from a moose lodge, actually, from a restaurant park. But yeah, look at how fucking dank that Publicly Buzzed sign looks. It looks amazing. Welcome everybody to Murder Church. Thank you all very much. Debbie, welcome to your first Murder Church service. Love to hear that. That's freaking awesome. Hopefully this all sounds good. Hopefully everything will work good as well. Again, I'm back in the basement, back in the old school studio. Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, I've still got some more stuff, again, that I actually want to put up and decorate with some more. Man, yesterday I was all day just putting up my new camera. Hopefully it looks good. I got a new light. I got a new backlight. I've got a new desk. Yeah, I was doing a lot of different stuff down here, and I'm not a technical savvy person, but I am going to brag for a minute because I didn't have to actually call Dan, which is crazy. Only Dan's was not needed yesterday. Before we get too far, I do want to wish CR a happy 5-month anniversary. Yay, Murder Church today. Pass the plate around. Thank you very much. That is an amazing
happy anniversary. Happy
anniversary. Right there, 5 months. That's a long ass time.
Happy anniversary.
Anniversary! It's anniversary!
So yeah, really appreciate that, CR. Thank you very much. Megsy coming through here. Dahmer morning. Murder Church, Jeffrey Dahmer, MVP every single week, always coming through with the facts. Disney Nerd, Disney, Tango Crochet, Dizzy, Jay, Bonnie, Allie, Susan, again, Debbie, welcome. Good morning. Thank you for being here for your first Murder Church. Viv, good to see you. Sad that your son has to head back to where he's from, but I know that you was enjoying having him in. I'm glad he could help you. Yes, Debbie. Deja Vu, good morning. Cavlaw, Ms. Krampus, Denise. Yeah, we got a full house in here today. This is awesome to see. Kelly Gale, Janet. I'm just rolling down through here real quick. Disney Nerd, not sure if I said that. Thank you all so much. Okay, your YouTube comments are behind your overlay. Oh shit, let me fix that real quick. I'm pretty good at doing that. See if that fixes that real quick. Where'd they go? Hold on 1 second. 1 second. I need to get that right. There we go. Oh, wait. Hold on. I think that is it. One more chance. Boom! We'll fix it in real time. Thank you, Jay, for calling that out. Appreciate it. Throw up by hells. Yeah. First of all, everybody yesterday that came through for the debut of the Killer Contestants video, thank you all so freaking much. Like, I seriously can't even put into words. Jay, thank you so much for helping me promote that. You're amazing. You're out of this fucking world as a human being, dude, because that was awesome. That was one of the coolest things I've ever freaking experienced. Good morning, Austin. Glad you could be here. That was so amazing. Like, I don't even know what to say, quite frankly. Yeah, everyone coming through, hanging out, getting the likes in before the video even debuted. We were up to 61. We're, I think, at like 120 right now. The video is doing well. I'm glad that it could actually get into an early part of the algorithm. That's so important. Again, I put a lot of time into that, and you guys came the fuck through. We have a contest that I'm going to have to tally up, see exactly what's going on with, get all the names in there, and then we'll figure out how to do that live on the show. And we'll probably do that either Tuesday or Thursday. I may do that when Dan's here, just to have his input as well. But yeah, I'm going to get everybody together, and then we'll be getting a one-of-a-kind variant of the tie-dye specific Publicly Buzzed shirt that's about to start shipping out right now. The ones that everyone had purchased. So yeah, let me look through the chat here. Looks like some shit's going on. We got another anniversary here. 2 months for Lisa Pritchard. I love it. Hi everyone.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, wrong one. You'll get a Halle Berry anyway. Huh?
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Thank you so much. Austin Rain's 6-month anniversary. 6 badass months. Holy shit.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
It's
Wow.
anniversary.
That's amazing. That is fucking amazing. Wow. Yeah, and for the anniversaries, we're going to throw out some beers as well. I'll throw out a coffee drink. I'll throw out a liquor drink, too. Get you started right on a Sunday. And throw out a couple extra probably nothings there as well. That's awesome. In 6 months, that blew my mind to read. Yeah. I was catching up on the chat there. I got you, Jay. Thank you very much. Again, dude, you are a big part of the J-Bo Nation is a big part of this. J-Buzz Nation. Again, you can't talk about this community enough. What you guys do out here is special. The Bo effect is real, my friends. Thank you all so much. Yeah, love it. Oh, thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, everybody coming through here. Mosh, what's up, brother? Hell yeah, good to see you in here. Mosh, old school, publicly buzzed fan right here. He's from the early days. And I know Mosh in real life. He's a great guy. Oh, thank you very much, Viv. Love it. Hell yeah. Yeah, today we are going into Believe It or Not. Week 13. I can't believe it. Week 13? That's crazy. That's absolutely unbelievable. Cavlaw, what's up? Throw you a little love. Through the beers up here. Still looking through here. Still trying to catch up on chat. Another anniversary. Shit, Bonnie Bailey. 2 months. Enjoyed all of it. Thank you so much. Wow. This is nuts, guys. Well, I'm about to hit the bells.
Anniversary! It's anniversary!
And we're going to start this thing off right, ladies and gentlemen. Once the church bells start rolling, I hope to see everybody in their seats and ready to rock and roll. Jamie, coming through here as well, Mod. Shannon, good morning. Good stuff. Thank y'all so much. Those are good cases. I mean, and dude, that's not even all of them. Here's the thing. I was going to put a Jeopardy guy on there as well. There's a guy that appeared on Jeopardy in 1989 that went on 2 years later to kill his wife. And I was going to do that one as well. But then, you know, the one thing about that, I could find pictures of the guy, but I couldn't find any actual footage of him on Jeopardy in 89, which sucks. I like to put a little bit of the actual real footage in there. I could have made it work, but yeah, there's actually even, I think even more than that, like 5. I could have maybe went a couple bit deeper, but again, the footage wasn't there to really, truly, I'd have been hunting for, it really would have just been more of a picture fest, but I mean, which is good. You can document and manipulate and make it pop, if you will, but yeah, there was a lot of good cases in there, though. Yeah, you're right. That would be cool. Also, boom. Yeah. Also, please get those likes in, folks, as you come through. That really helps us out again here in the old YouTube algorithm. Like us, share us, let your communities, let Facebook, let Twitter know what you're watching, that you're hanging out with us here at Publicly Buzzed. And yeah, we're gonna start this bad boy up again. Thank you all, baby. New studio. Let's go. Again, week 13, we are still on Dr. Frederick Fosdal, part 2, psychiatrist. Continues his testimony this week. This is about another hour and a half, and then we will continue to roll on, folks. Make sure the sound is properly working. Do you guys think the camera looks better? Do you think it looks better than the other camera that I had? I'm still working on the lighting situation, quite frankly. And the entire setup. I'm not even 100% sure if this is going to be the full-on positioning of the camera. Like, I'm still kind of messing with everything. I'm so new to getting. I'm so new that basically I got this finished at 10 or 11 last night. Did a little bit of a live stream test with Dan just to make sure I was good for in the morning, and I didn't really have a lot of time to do any extra stuff. So yeah, we're still in the early stages of this transition. Just keep that in mind. Hold on. actually. One thing I know that's not happening.
We interrupted you. You may continue.
You've completed that. With that, you completed the interview that you conducted on the 16th of October, 1991. Is that correct?
That's true.
Did there come a time that you returned to again interview Mr. Dahmer?
Yes, I did on October 23rd, 1991, again in the Milwaukee County Safety Building, and that was a 3-hour interview.
All right, and did you do it again? You and he spoke together. Are you alone during these interviews with him?
Yes, I am.
And you're in a somewhat private, in a private room, basically.
That's true.
Please proceed.
Yeah, also, let me do this real quick. Jay, hey friends, if you like Publicly Buzzed new neon sign, it's actually made by my brother. His website is here. Yeah, Jay's brother made this sign, guys. And it's fucking awesome as shit. Now, when I first turned it on, I had to put the, what is the thing? It's the, whatever they send it with that you can kind of like download the app and then put whatever, you can dim the light essentially after you get that. I had to put that on when I first just hooked it up. Actually, it was kind of sad at first. I was like, oh shit, it's too bright. It's not going to look good on camera. But then I was like, oh yeah, it's got the dimmer, dude. And that worked out perfectly. As you can see, that thing's popping on camera right now. I love it. I fucking love it. But yeah, go buy one, man. Anybody that's in the market for some neon signs, you're not going to be disappointed. Holy shit, some more anniversaries are popping through here real quick. Hold on. Jamie Marshall, my brother, I know Jamie, Ninja in real life, hit that like and show some love, baby. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Give me the loot! Give me the loot!
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, of course. Morning, Donnie. Thank you for being in here. Everybody, thank you all so much. It's awesome. We got another anniversary. Joanne, baby. 1 month.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Anniversary!
I love
it's
it.
anniversary!
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. This is a really bright light too, and honestly, I think you're supposed to have 2 of these key lights on both sides, and I've only got 1. Nice, hell yeah! Glad it looks good. Hell yeah, guys! Love you all.
He brought me up to date. He told me he had a visit from his mother, and said she was still supportive of him, even in spite of his legal difficulties. And he mentioned that he never stopped drinking alcohol, and that he drank primarily during the weekends and while living in Milwaukee, and again confirmed that DePaul was his only alcoholic treatment program. He then told me that his first sexual experience was when he was 14 years old, and it was with a 13-year-old boy from across the street, and they had a tree fort, F-O-R-T, and undressed and played with each other and kissed each other. This happened a couple times, and this individual had been his friend for a few years, and they would approach each other, and was by mutual consent. Mr. Dahmer, I asked, and Mr. Dahmer said he did not initiate it, or he did not, was not the aggressor, so to speak. And this behavior occurred around 7th or 8th grade. Heterosexually, he said he never tried to initiate a relationship, and that he has not had heterosexual interest or desire. He did not date or call girls over the years. He said, quote, "I knew where I stood. I knew I was gay," unquote. He said feeling this way and realizing this was not that upsetting or traumatic to him years ago. He became aware of his interest, quote, "interest in the physique of better-looking guys," unquote. And he said his involvement with the 13-year-old boy was an isolated incident, unquote. So the point there is that when he...
I think just so there's no confusion in the jury's mind, because there's another 13-year-old Laotian boy. Would you read that full sentence?
I'll be right back, guys. I got to get a lighter.
The 13-year-old boy from across the street was an isolated incident.
He's speaking of his involvement
in the junk room.
with his...
Neighborhood boy.
Pardon?
The neighborhood boy.
The neighborhood boy when he was a young man.
Right.
Right.
But the important thing here is that when he realizes his gayness, that this is not, he implied it wasn't that devastating or traumatic for him, as it sometimes is. In junior high school, he said he had a, quote, fascination with road kills, unquote. These are dogs killed on the road. He denied purposefully killing any animals and cutting them up. But he said he picked up the animals off the road and he wanted to see what was inside of them. This is certainly a forerunner of things to come. He was, quote, curious, unquote. He said he was going to deflesh and clean the skeleton of a particular large dog, but he never finished this project. He said this behavior with the roadkills was not sexually motivated, and he did not derive sexual pleasure or stimulation from this. And he said this behavior with the dead animals lasted for a couple years, and that he was involved with about 10 animals altogether, mostly dogs and a few raccoons. And this behavior lasted until he was about 17 years old, or until he was in his junior year of high school, and then he lost interest in this.
Was there then a discussion about the death of Stephen Hicks?
Yes, yes. He said he was living alone at home for a couple weeks, and after his mother moved to Chippewa Falls, father was living 5 miles away in a motel. He had been drinking, Mr. Dahmer, not father, and picked up a hitchhiker, and he gave the name of the road in Bath. He said a young man with a bare back and short pants, and this occurred in June or July. And he returned home and they had some beer. He did not mention marijuana, which is mentioned in the confession that marijuana was also involved. But he said he was attracted to this boy, and then Hicks wanted to return to his destination, and he realized Hicks was not gay, but he wanted Hicks to stay. A fundamental feature in this case is the victims want to leave, Mr. Dahmer wants them to stay. While Hicks was sitting down, Mr. Dahmer hit Mr. Hicks by surprise from behind on the head with a barbell. It knocked him out. He said they had been together for about 90 minutes before the assault, and he again said that he had an interest in Mr. Hicks's physique. And then at this time he also entered an aside that he denied hating gays or blacks as a reason why he hit Mr. Hicks or other people. He denied previous approaches or attempts to make homosexual contact, meaning prior to this, he just had not had a contact, he had not had a homosexual outlet, had not had a homosexual relationship. So this is relevant to the development of his later behavior. He said his picking up Hicks was his first approach. He said he wanted, quote,
excuse me, Doctor, I've been following what you're saying. When it is something that you're interpreting, would you just be kind enough to say my interpretation of that is such and such?
Fine.
Because I just
Yes.
don't want anybody to get confused that that's what he is saying, that this is relevant to his behavior later. That's not in your report. That's your...
That's
So would you do that for us, please?
my editorializing as we
Thanks.
proceed.
No problem you doing it. Just let us know when you do it.
Please. He said he wondered, quote, how do I get...
So kind of still trying to get used to this space as well. Hold on. Let me fix my camera here. So I keep positioning my body to make it work better, but let me get comfortable. And then, yeah, here we go. Need to get a little closer to my desk because I'm reaching halfway across the world to type to you guys. So hold on one second. Fixing this in real time. I can play this while I do it.
Get this guy to stay, unquote. He did not ask him to stay and did not offer him any money. He had the idea, and I asked him this, he had the idea to hit him over the head for about a half hour. He was able to, this is my comment, he was able to have that idea consciously for that long a time. He said they were drinking beer and gave the brand name, and he was intoxicated. He then strangled him with a barbell, and he said, quote, I was pretty panicked.
There we go. There we go.
Quote, I
No,
didn't
I'm not reaching halfway
want
across
to
the world
get
here.
caught, so I went
I was
all
getting
the
my mic
way
right.
and finished it, meaning strangled him. I cracked his skull, unquote. He then said he killed him
There
to
we
get
go.
rid of a witness and to end Hicks' suffering. He said he thought Hicks probably would have been disabled because of the head injury. And recall, this is not on the notes, but he implied that there was clearly a crushing skull injury. There was an indentation, and he assumed that because of this, Mr. Hicks would be disabled. He then said, quote, "I definitely wanted to make sure no one found out about it, unquote, what had happened." And again, my inference from this is that this certainly reflects that, or suggests that he had some appreciation of the wrongfulness of what he was doing. He said he'd been drinking throughout that day and really felt, quote, "panicked," unquote, after he killed Hicks. He said the alcohol, quote, "clouded my thinking," unquote. And again, my inference is that this again suggests that alcohol played a part in the behavior. He said he sat on the bed and wondered, quote, "what should I do now," unquote. A couple hours later, he took the body to the crawl space and waited for darkness. He said he did not sleep.
One cool thing about the sign, I'm going to change I keep bragging about the studio. I'm proud of this, baby. Also, I'm still trying to wake up, as you can see. I didn't go to bed at like 2 in the morning, but this sign right here, this one right here, this sign's going to look really cool when I can get it set up. The top of it, and I started working on that kind of first. There's even a sign above it that's dope as hell too. And I've gotten these at flea markets. But this one right here, this came out of a moose lodge, right? So and I'm not gonna, I can pick it up and show you, but I'm just gonna wait till I actually get it set up right. The very top of that sign is the old school Coors logo. Like my hat's over here, but just like the hat that I wear, like it's perfect. Like it looks really cool. And I've got another sign I'm thinking about putting up as well. And I'm thinking about putting up, I don't know if anybody remembers the old, I don't know, maybe they still make them, probably not. Magazines are kind of out now, but the old heavy metal magazines, specifically the ones from the 70s and the 80s, with the old school art on the covers, usually some lady half naked, or like some kind of violence, or like something crazy, alien, spaceship, something. The art was always out of this world. I think maybe putting some of those back there, because I collect those, and I have a huge collection of specifically 70s and 80s when the magazine started in 77, January 77, I think. And I've got a fuck ton of those, and that would fit the theme perfectly, I think, because there's a bunch of even alien issues. When I get a second, I might grab a few and see what you guys think about that. Get the input here. In the chat is blowing up right now, everybody. What is happening? Tangled Crochet just gifted out a membership. Lil Love, gonna grab that thing. Lil Love, and I think the beers are probably already flowing in the chat, folks. Hell yeah. Boom. First of all, let me crack one and get a satisfying pour for you right here. Let me also move these brewskis out just slightly so you can see all the satisfying pours. But welcome to the party as well.
Welcome to the party, pal.
And we appreciate you here at Publicly Buzzed. The J-Buzz Nation, J-Bo Nation, Buzz Nation, baby. Keeping it real. Doing big things out here. We're going to keep doing big things. I don't think that was it. Hold on. We're not done here, folks. We're not done here. Scrolling down here just a little bit further, baby. I see a couple of beers hanging out. A couple of probably nothings hanging out. CR coming through with a $10 super sticker. And hell yeah, thank you so much, CR. Appreciate that. Love you. Boom. Always coming through as well. CR is an absolute MVP of the chat, queen of the chat, and of this entire community here. Amazing. Love it. Thank you so much. And we are getting super close. Oh, hold on. I got to fix these two. Hold on. Fucking hell. We are getting super close to 1K on the Publicly Buzzed Twitter. I think we're at 175 now. We're getting really, no, 175. Holy shit. 875. So, yeah, please follow on Twitter as well. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that, brother. I do a lot of lurking as well, Susan, on Jay's channel all day at work. Thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate that. And she's about to feed some ponies? You should be videoing. We'll tune into that. That sounds awesome. Jay Money, thank you very much, man. I'm stoked about it as well. Thank you, Allie. I'm very proud. I'm proud, man. We're doing this thing. We're all together doing this thing, though. That's what's happening. Yes. Oh, yes. Still catching up on chat here. have tons of wrestling mags. I do too now. I have a lot of those old classic WoW magazines and a lot of the old WWF mags and stuff. That would maybe look cool back there. I don't want to go to wrestling. I don't want to go, hell, I don't want to go to wrestling. My wall's going to be on a true crime channel, heavy metal magazines, folks. So what the hell do I know? And, old school wrestling magazines are actually really fucking cool, especially when you got the old dudes bleeding on there.
Sleep that night and felt, quote, too horrified, unquote. He did not attempt anything sexual prior to the assault or afterwards. But the next day he did masturbate in front of the body and touch the body in the chest and the penis area. But he did not have oral sex, but he did admit that he was aroused by the body. And then I asked him, and he said he had heard of necrophilia before, and he said his sexual interest prior to the Hicks murder was to be with someone who was alive. He denied having any prior thoughts or fantasies about necrophilia or being involved sexually with someone after their death.
Oh shit, Debbie coming through, not only debuting for Murder Church, but coming through with a $20 for the pot there. Bam! Congrats on the new studio. Thank you very much, Debbie. I really appreciate it. Let's give her a little love there. Yeah, give her a little Biggie as well. Oh, bad man. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate that, and thank you very much, man. I'm still working on it. Still work in progress, but we're getting there, baby.
He said he was, quote, very worried, unquote, about his legal situation. He knew that no one was coming back to the house, but he said, quote, but I had to dispose of the evidence, unquote, and my inference of that is, again, is talking about his appreciation of the legal situation and the trouble he was in. The next...
That is, as they're going over these materials,
we have a good time, but also always, folks, for real, trigger warning, you're going to hear a lot of fucked up shit. Also.
This brings to mind the wrongfulness prong of the insanity issue, and that's something you're taking note of in your own mind as you're proceeding, that he appreciates this is wrong, and that's why he's going to hide the body and so on.
That's true. The next day, the second day, he bought a hunting knife and then masturbated again. And he cut open the body to view his insides, and then he talked about dismembering. And he said he did this, quote, to make him light enough to carry, unquote. And he again confirmed that this was not sexually motivated behavior, the cutting part, but disposal behavior. During the second night, he took trash bags with the parts to a large ravine, which was outside of town. He did this around 3 in the morning, and on his way to the ravine, he was stopped by the police for driving left of center. The policeman called for a backup. Mr. Dahmer passed the sobriety test. The policeman asked him what was in the back seat, and he told the policeman that it was trash for the landfill. And when asked why he was out so late, he said he was upset with his parents' divorce, and he decided to go for a, quote, late drive, unquote. The policeman shined a light in the back seat, and this made him, quote, really nervous, unquote.
Again, after this, I won't interrupt each time, but again, this bears on your considerations of his appreciation of the wrongfulness of his conduct. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, it does. He was not arrested and returned home. He then made the comment that one of the officers he dealt with that during those early morning hours years ago is still on the force and was one of the officers that came to Milwaukee to interview him in regard to the present charges. Then Mr. Dahmer said, quote, I wish I had been caught. It would have put a stop to it, unquote. The next morning, he put the bags with the body parts in a 10-foot drainage pipe in his backyard. And
I think that's why, like, at the end, once he actually was caught, Jeffrey Dahmer, and he got back to the police station and just instantly started, throwing it all out there. Like, they didn't have to beat the hell out of Jeffrey Dahmer to figure out what was going on. He was giving it up pretty freely. And I think it's because he was tired, man. Even here, it says, I wish I'd have been caught then. So the addiction, and he literally can't stop killing for the pleasure that he's seeking. And But I think, deep down, he's one of the weird ones. I put him in kind of the same side of the serial killers as Ed Kemper. Really just because they kind of knew that their brains were broken, I believe. Because when Ed Kemper turned himself in. He did a lot of murders. After he killed his mother and her friend, he turned himself into police because he was tormented. He wanted to die. He wanted the death penalty. He even got the death penalty before they took it away from in the area he was at. So I believe he's in California, actually. So he wanted to die. Jeffrey Dahmer, we know how Jeffrey Dahmer went out, and we've also heard the stories of how he would kind of rile up, I'm going to say allegedly here, but kind of rile up some of the other prisoners with the way he would maybe play with the food during lunch, messing with them, almost trolling them, right? Did he want to die in prison that soon? Did he not, I'm sure he probably, if it's in the same vein, wanted the death penalty as well. And I don't think he didn't get death. So he did the best next option, right? I mean, I don't know what happened that day when he was actually killed in the cleaning, in the area that him and the two other cellmates were not cellmates, but inmates were cleaning. So maybe he was trolling him, again, just me speculating and allegedly here, but I don't think that he wanted to be on this planet anymore anyways. He wanted to be done. It's sad as fuck because he killed so many people. All right, put him next to someone like John Wayne Gacy, just for example, for a second. You got John Wayne Gacy, who's an absolute vile human piece of shit garbage can, okay, who would never take responsibility for what he did, always trying to act like that it's a big conspiracy. They're trying to get him, right? Multiple people like that throughout history, especially being serial killers. Jeffrey Dahmer wanted to, his brain was broken in a different type of way. I see the chat going off here. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, it's sad to hear that because it's like, I wish I'd have been caught. How many innocent lives would have been saved? Quite a fucking few. Unravel coming through here. Good morning, Unravel. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Sociopathic, not psychotic. Joanne, good morning. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Megsy, it's insane how the same officer who wrote the ticket came to Milwaukee to question him about the Ohio murder years later after he was definitely caught. Yeah, it's a wild case. There's so many wild cases in true crime and the serial killer side of it especially, but this one is different, man. Again, that's why I wanted to kind of go into the Jeffrey Dahmer trial. I'll admit that I didn't know what the task that I was even taking on at first. I knew it was a long trial. I've seen on court TV how many parts it was. I didn't grasp the length of each part. So it's also been a very educational experience here at Murder Church, being the very first, trial that we've done, quite frankly. So yeah, I'm glad that we got this one in first. It's a different one. I've never seen one like this, being an insanity trial as well, but it is interesting to say the least.
Smash the opening of the pipe closed.
Best way to put it. Mrs. Krampus just nailed it. It's very sad, but reality. That's what it is. And that's why it's interesting to look back, study, think about, talk about, and we've talked about the show Mind Hunters on the show many times before, especially on Murder Church. There's a place for that conversation because it helps and can help people in the future, and hopefully let us figure out these parts of the human brain that I'm for lack of a better term, are fucking broken. These guys are, and it's different. Some of them, the impulses are different. Again, I'm rambling here a little bit. Take Rex Heuermann, for example, from what I'm just seeing what it looks like. All right. Gross, vile, ogre human being of a man that did not want to be caught. All right. I don't think that was in his, as anything that he wanted to do in the future at all. But I think Jeffrey Dahmer probably the entire time is like feeling actually like shit in a weird way, but he literally can't freaking stop. The compulsion is there and he wants to murder for his own pleasure. It's an addiction. All right. It's an addiction like anything else that you get addicted to, quite frankly, with him in this situation. It's crazy. Like, he was addicted to gratifying himself sexually with these people, and if they wanted to leave, even before, that's where the necrophiliac parts come in, and then that's where it gets even more morbid, and we can't even truly understand it with our fucking brains because we're not broken again like some of these guys, and especially Jeffrey Dahmer.
A few years later, after his discharge from the Army and while living back home for about 6 months with his father and stepmother, he opened up the pipe when his parents were gone He found the bones and broke them up with a rock and scattered the pieces. He said, quote, small pieces so they would not be identified, unquote.
Same.
At the time of the homicide, he said that he threw the knife and Mr. Hicks's necklace over a bridge. This was about 2 weeks later after the assault, and then he later burned Mr. Hicks's clothes in an outside trash burner.
Again, this activity, disposing of evidence, destroying evidence, is all indicative of his appreciation of the wrongfulness of his conduct. Is that correct?
That's true.
Now, with all due respect, I don't have any problems about the inquiry, but counsel is leading. If the doctor wants to say that, it's
The
fine.
question is a leading question, no question about it, Mr. Boyle.
He then told me that in
Boy,
over half the
boys.
homicides, the police would never
Girls.
have known these are the Milwaukee cases, and he would not be charged. But he said he wants, quote, nothing concealed, unquote, and that is why he's been so cooperative. He blamed the Hicks homicide as a, quote, big factor, unquote, in his starting to abuse alcohol, and that alcohol helped him not to think about it, and that there was nothing in the news or on TV about Hicks, and he was never questioned by the police. He said he was, quote, curious, unquote, when he was back living at home after the Army, and he decided to, quote, completely dispose of the evidence, unquote, and that was involved, meaning finding the bones again and breaking them up again. He said Hicks' death was always, quote, in the back of my mind. I drank the memories away, unquote. He did not know Hicks' family. He said it was a, quote, a horror that I wanted to forget, unquote. They did not have a fight prior to the assault, he and Hicks. He said he wanted to knock Hicks out because he would then have, quote, control over him, unquote. When asked about the other homicides, he said he wanted them incapacitated, quote, the ability to exercise complete control over someone, unquote. He said he was attracted to their looks and, quote, they're with me and I can keep them, unquote. He denied, again, getting back to this abandonment issue, if this is one of Mr. Dahmer's things, he denied any previous clinging type behavior,
Morning,
clinging
Mandy.
to other people and being very intolerant to being left alone or being abandoned. This was an earlier concern, and he denied this. He said his mother's leaving was not that upsetting to him, and that her leaving was discussed, and that he stayed there because he's going to start college. He said her leaving provided him a, quote, window of opportunity to bring someone home, unquote, for homosexual contact. Again, implying that when she was there, of course, he was restricted in this type of behavior that
The mouth noises.
he then commented on the publicity, and he disagreed with some of it, and he definitely denied being molested during his childhood by his parents or relatives or anyone. And he
It's an interesting way to put it, Mrs. Krampus. Sounds like he was a prisoner in his own mind, yeah.
definitely denied the formulation that he was in any way a victim of childhood sexual abuse.
Doctor, at this juncture, although he told you that he received and disagreed with some of the articles, he also told you he hadn't read any of them.
This is objective.
That's right.
Okay, this is Mr. McCann's examination, and I appreciate, Mr. Boyle, once in a while, maybe it's a little helpful in that it saves some time on cross-examination, but if Mr. McCann says he doesn't want that to happen, I think it's Mr. McCann's examination.
All right, I understand. It'll just take a lot longer. If you just read what he has there, I won't do that.
Do it according to law. Mr. Boyle doesn't know what was said. He wasn't at this meeting. He doesn't know if Mr. Dahmer said anything.
I'm not asking for any argument. Mr. McCann, it's your examination, and if you don't want Mr. Boyle interrupting, other than to make an objection, that's your prerogative.
Yes, he had not read anything about his case. He then said, quote, I was attracted to him, referring to Mr. Hicks, enough that I wanted to keep him. That was the first time, unquote. While he was in Germany, he said he bought male pornographic magazines and routinely masturbated on a daily basis. He said he started masturbating while in junior high school, and he called it a, quote, obsession to relieve tension, unquote. For stimulation or arousal, he would use homosexual videos and pictures. He said after the Hicks homicide, he said he was deterred from any further contacts, and that he also said he was, quote, too busy with college and the Army and Miami, unquote. When asked about his sexual feelings during that time, he said his practice was to, quote, always, unquote, have male magazines available for masturbation purposes. In the Army, he said he had no opportunity, unquote, and was not approached for homosexual purposes. In Miami, he said he was, quote, too busy working. I never had anyone to take back to a hotel, unquote.
The best. I love it when the viewers and the likes match up, Jay.
Continued to
Hey, thanks everybody for popping in here. I see the viewership just went up as well. Hit that like. Thanks y'all so much. Appreciate it. It's amazing.
drink excessively during those years.
That's how it goes.
To help suppress his memories. And he said he became, quote, hooked, unquote, on beer and mixed drinks by that time. Again, referring to further reflecting on his chronic alcoholism. After Hicks, I asked him, and he said he did not re-experience again the feeling of separation or somebody wanting to leave him again like he experienced with Mr. Hicks. He also never told anybody about what happened to Hicks. When asked about the killing the animals during his childhood, he said his animal behavior only occurred with animals killed on the road. He did not say parts of the animals except for the one time he was going to mount the skeleton of a large dog, but he did not finish that project. In Miami, he did not.
That was a Jeffrey Dahmer project. Somebody was asking, what does he do in his free time? Well,
I have a car and worked long hours and had little money.
No,
He did not
I
have
get
any
it.
homosexual contacts and did not go to gay bars. And he worked in the tourist section of town, and he implied to me that he was a, quote, naive, unquote, gay individual at that time and was just not sure the ropes.
That's an interesting tidbit right there. Apparently he never dreamed about his victims, per Megsy. Wow. You think that would just be haunting someone, right? Again, I've went into it on here before. I could do something small, like by mistake, and it be a fuck up, and I'm thinking about that all day. Like, that's interesting.
Is not engaging in any violent activity while he was in the Army.
He can decompartmentalize the victims and put, not go, oh, that's crazy to me. That's crazy.
Sexually assaultive activity.
Well, he certainly...
Sorry, I keep pausing here, but City Kitty, yeah. The drinking's what dulled probably exactly what I was just talking about there.
Whatever
he probably drank till he fucking passed out. And let me get rid of some of these. This might help. But yeah, he probably would drink himself until he literally passed the fuck out, right?
His desires,
blackout drunk,
or motivations.
Yo, good morning, Bob. What's going on? Happy Sunday.
At least under control at that time.
And the fact that none of such activities occurred in Miami. From what did you infer from that?
Pretty much the same thing. That his being busy and being occupied does help his control. He then returned to his father and stepmother in Bath and was there for about 6 months and continued to abuse alcohol. This led to arguments, and it was father's idea that he should return to grandmother's in West Dallas, even though Mr. Dahmer did not want to.
Well, if you like Bob on the show, you're going to love tomorrow night, and I still got to make some graphics and shit for it, but tomorrow is going to be a special presentation here on Publicly Buzzed. We're doing a special Monday night stream. We're having a special guest on the stream as well. We're having Dr. Turtle Boy. Turtle Boy is coming over here to hang out, baby. He's going to be talking about the Karen Reed case that's going on currently that we were introduced to by Mr. Bob Mata from Defense Diaries. And they probably already put your link in there, Bob, but we got you set up right here, sir. Boom. Go check him out. Make sure you're listening to his podcast and following him on Twitter, because it's some really good information that he puts out there that you don't see from anybody else, quite frankly. He's got a really cool spin on it. And anybody that's seen him on here knows that he's got an awesome personality as well. But yeah, tomorrow's going to be freaking sweet. 9 p.m. Eastern time. Very special, Publicly Buzzed special presentation.
He had visited grandmother a few times during his childhood. He arrived in West Allis around December of 1981, and he looked for work to help grandmother around the yard, and said his grandmother was, quote, heavily, unquote, into church activities. Mr. Dahmer tried to straighten his life out, and he went to church and did not drink alcohol for a couple years. He stopped masturbating and using men's magazines and went to a church. He did admit that his grandmother was upset with his drinking, and he did not drink for a couple years. He lived with grandmother for 8 or 9 years, but he continued to have homosexual desires, quote, but I did my best to suppress them, unquote.
What is the implication, the inference you draw from this period with respect to capacity to control?
Well, again, his desires and interests were pretty much under control during that time. During that time, he was at a local library, and another male dropped him a note at his table inviting him to come down to a lower level bathroom. And he said the note said, quote, and I'll give you a blowjob, unquote. Mr. Dahmer did not follow through with this invitation because he wanted to, as he said, not tumble, unquote, and stay on the straight path he was trying to stay on. But he said that after this episode, his desires, sexual desires increased and his willpower lessened, and he started, quote, slowly, unquote, drinking again on weekends, and he said the drinking enhanced his homosexual desires. He then started going to bookstores and looking at magazines, and again started masturbating. He did not know where the gay bars were, but he found out in the pornographic bookstores. And then around 1985 or 1986, he started going to gay bars, and he said this, quote, fueled my desire, unquote. He found out what a bath club was, and by this time he had stopped going to church. He mentioned the name of a local bath club and how much it cost to stay there, and what they did there, like looking at male videos and in the lounge, and he and the other men there would sit around and they were wearing towels. He told me this was not illegal behavior, but that anal intercourse at these places was about all that was illegal. He had an annual membership for $25. He went there on weekends, even while he was living with his grandmother. He said that she did not know where he was, and his parents did not know he was gay. He had, quote, one-night stands, unquote, at the bathhouse. And it was my interpretation that this was apparently his first mutual consensual homosexual experiences at these bathhouses.
And this would be as an adult?
As an adult with a consenting male, yes. He went to the bathhouse for a couple years, and after it closed, he would pick up men and go to a couple Milwaukee hotels and gave the names. This would be on Saturday nights and after leaving a bar. He said the bathhouse closed because of a possible tuberculosis problem, and he did not tell me that he was apparently asked to leave because of the drugging. He was aware of the AIDS issue, and occasionally would have anal intercourse, but would then use a condom. He said he did not like anal intercourse being done to him, but he just wanted to, quote, lay around, hug, and kiss, unquote, which he called soft sex. He then estimated that he had been with 200 different men, ages 18 to the late 60s.
This was in the first interview, he had mentioned the figure 100, is that correct?
Something like that, yes.
So this was a modification upward?
Yes. He said, quote, you don't develop a lasting friendship there, unquote, referring to the bathhouses. At the bathhouse, he was usually with someone new every time. Most of the males there did not interest him. Only a few of them were, quote, nice looking, unquote. And those were the only ones he would bother trying to pick up. When asked, he said he was approached himself by less desirable men, and he would then just make small talk with them and then turn them down. The ones that he was attracted to usually did not approach him, but he would approach the ones he liked, and sometimes they would agree, and sometimes they would not. Sometimes he would have to settle for a less desirable man, and especially after he had been drinking. On about 50% of the times, the attractive men would go with him, and he implied that he was not routinely rejected or disappointed, and he was not devastated by the rejections when turned down. And he said, quote, that's to be expected, unquote. And he said that the men have, quote, very shallow relationships, unquote, amongst each other. What I was driving at here was pretty much how did he feel about himself, his attractiveness, his bargaining power with other men. Is he
All right, fight break. Hold on. It's just popped up on my Twitter feed. This was at a San Francisco 49ers versus Broncos game. She's getting real. Boom! That dude took it down, bro. You see this guy at the very end, though. He got fucked up. This lady right here, in her talking on her microphone. We need some help out here. We need some help. Stat! We need some help right now, baby. This lady right here. This lady right here is trying to get some control of her man. She's like, just chill the fuck out, dude. What are you doing? What are we doing out here? We got kids at the house. We got to get back to the house tonight. You want to go to jail? I ain't got money to bail you out. Oh, they just put that dude to sleep. He wouldn't. I hate it when they just keep going, too. At least security was there to stop that guy. You see his adrenaline's going fucking crazy. Look at her. She's like, stop! This lady on her microphone, dear God, we need help out here. We need help pronto. Sir, please get back to your seat. Please get back to your seat, sir. I need some backup. You get back to your seat too. Look at this dude. He's calling him out. He's like, listen, the bald motherfucker over here. He just killed my friend. He just killed him. A little too much drinking out here. Oh, there he is. Look at him. He's waking up. They're waking him up. He realizes that it's over. He's gonna have to take the walk of shame here. He still looks like he's asleep, too. Look at this dude. He's beefed up. He does look like a bad motherfucker. I would not want to get hit by that man. Just say it. Sir, please, you're going to have to leave. I know that your face hurts, but we're going to have to arrest you. You're being put in handcuffs. We're going to put you underneath the stadium inside of a little jail cell. Everybody's like, all right. He can barely even walk. Look at him, dude. Wobbly legs. Barely able to fucking walk. We'll have a fight break every once in a while now. Here on Murder Church.
completely unwanted?
Yeah, it's at a 49ers game, Mandy. Oh, damn. You guys getting here any of the... Well, damn. Hold on. You want me to bring it back up? I'll play it with some sound. My bad. Shit. I thought I had the sound on. It's what's silly. Hold on. I gotta find it. Oh shit, the sound on here. Fuck. You're talking about on here. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Good call. We'll back up just a second. So that is the one bad thing about me playing another video. I may forget to turn the sound back on for the actual trial. Hold on. I'm gonna back up. We're 28. I'm gonna go back to like 27. Sorry about that.
Again, when asked, he said he never had a sustained lover or a steady relationship with another gay person, and implied that it was not his goal to have such a relationship or steady boyfriend, but he wanted to play the field, which was his words. He was not devastated that he did not have a steady lover, but he thought it might have been, quote, nice, unquote, to have such a relationship. He then said that most of the men tend to play the field and not have a steady lover, but he later corrected me on this in a later interview. While living at grandmother's, he was not able to bring people home because she was there. He would be gone on Saturday nights and gave mother a work excuse as to why he was...
That's my bad. That's my bad. I was about to go back and re-show that son of a bitch. Sorry about that, guys.
Gone. He would pick someone up and go to one of the hotels. He would only have a sexual contact like this on Saturday and not during the week.
This is, what do you draw from that?
Well, again, he's timing when he engages in his sexual behavior. He has a desire, of course, throughout the week. He has his interests, he has a motivation, but he is picking and choosing or channeling when he's going to follow through with his desires. I would say at this point in the history, we start a new phase in this whole scenario, and this is the phase of drugging. He told me that while at the bath club, he started using a sleeping pill, and that this was pretty much prompted in part by if his partner wanted to have heavy anal sex, unquote, he did not want to. So he would slip his partner the sleeping pill in their liquor in order to avoid having anal intercourse. The problem there is that, and this is not in my notes, but if the person wanted to have anal intercourse with Mr. Dahmer and he didn't want to, then of course the male that was with him would leave. And that of course he did not want that person to leave, but he also didn't want to have anal intercourse. He wanted to do his thing with his partner. So in order to solve that bind, he said he got into the drugging routine. He would then enjoy them physically while they were passed out, quote, the warmth of their company and have oral sex, unquote. He said if he did not cooperate in anal intercourse with his partner, then the partner would usually leave after 1 or 2 hours, and therefore he had to incapacitate them to keep them there. He said the sleeping pill was a way to keep them there all night, unquote. While his partner was passed out, he would lay on top of him, caress him, and kiss him. He said they were attractive even though they were passed out. He would use his, excuse me.
What was then from your discussion with him, what was the intended purpose then of protect himself from anal intercourse and then do what himself?
Prolong the availability of his homosexual contact. So again, this is, again, I'm interpreting, this is substitute behavior. He's now substituting vehicle, V-E-I-C-H-L-E, a program, a substitute pattern of behavior in order to satisfy his sexual needs. It's not being done with a fully cooperative boyfriend. The only way he can have it his way is through the drugging program, and then the person is completely passive and cooperative while, of course, unconscious. He would offer them drinks in his room, and he said they did not serve alcohol downstairs in the bathhouse. They just had a juice bar. He then told me about the sleeping pills and where he got them and how long he had them, and that he would use a bogus complaint of having trouble sleeping with his doctor. I then asked him, and he said that he has told.
Sure, going through a lot of these sleeping pills,
Indicate
Jeff.
then that he would have the, what did he say about how frequently he would have the prescriptions refilled?
He used the term, quote, many times over a 2-year period of time.
He mentioned a particular doctor. That doctor has testified, Dr. Olson, that he visited
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
him for those prescriptions.
That's true. I then asked him if he had shared all this information with the other examiners or people involved, and he said that about all that he told me that was new was related to this discrepancy between his scattering the bones of Hicks 2 weeks after the homicide, when it was really a few years later.
Doctor, I didn't hear the first part of your answer. Would you give?
It's the paragraph there on page 18.
No, I didn't, just tailed off.
I'm
didn't
sorry.
hear what you said.
That, I asked him, is anything I'm hearing new? And he implied that he's told everything that he's told me to other people, but that he implied that I was the first to hear about the change in when he scattered the Hicks bones. Apparently he had mentioned 2 weeks after the homicide or before, and he said it was really a few years
Yeah, I got one more.
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck you do that?
later. He said the sleeping pill was very, quote, very fast acting, and
But this one will work for a lot of situations, I feel like.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
It's hard, baby. Samuel L. out here.
of course, when asked, he said he usually was not accused by the partner of being drugged. And, but he said this did happen once or twice in Chicago. And then he said he went to Chicago, quote, many times, unquote, after the Milwaukee place was closed. And he went to 2 bathhouses in Chicago, and he gave the names of those 2 clubs and their addresses. He said the Chicago clubs were 3 times bigger than the Milwaukee club, and he used the sleeping potion on a regular basis. Quote, almost every time it made things easier. Then I wouldn't have to worry about doing things that I didn't want to do, unquote, which reflects on his motive for using the sleeping pill, and again, to not want to have to do homosexual behavior that he didn't like doing. Once or twice, the partner would be upset when he realized he had been drugged. One of these individuals in Chicago hit him, and when asked, he said he was the only one that he knew of that was drugging partners. So he was unique in this regard.
I then go into a discussion about the Stephen Twomey death in November of '87.
Yes, we do. He said this was the first one in Milwaukee, and he picked up an individual at one of the local taverns, gave the name, a white male. They went to this hotel.
We have mentioned the names of the taverns and the hotel, and I think it would be of assistance to the jury to mention that.
Okay, I'm just trying to not minimize the publicity. The 219 Club, and they went to the Ambassador Hotel. He said they were planning on a normal night, unquote. He gave this individual the sleeping mixture, and the partner passed out. Mr. Dahmer woke up lying on top of the partner in the park. He said the partner had a broken rib, and Mr. Dahmer had bruised forearms, and he assumed that he had beaten his partner to death. He said they had been drinking 151 proof rum, quote, drinking very heavy, unquote. He said he had no intentions of hurting this individual, and that, quote, it shocked the hell out of me, unquote. He was heavily bruised throughout the chest area, meaning the victim, and that blood was coming out of the victim's mouth, and that he was dead. And he estimated this was around 1987. He denied any recollection of beating him and assumed he, quote, blacked out, unquote. And that, quote, I had no intention of doing anything violent to him, unquote. He did not know what happened and could not find the bottle of rum. My interjection here is if he truly has no memory of that, the leading explanation would be an alcoholic amnesia or alcoholic blackout. He did not, he said he woke up that Sunday morning and did not know why it happened. He did not know what to do next. Quote, the whole thing started all over again, referring to the first time since Hicks, unquote. He put the body in a closet at the hotel. He then went to a mall and bought a large suitcase with wheels on it, and he paid $35. He stayed at the hotel until 1 a.m. Well, he stayed in the hotel another day, and he stayed until 1 a.m. and then went down in the elevator. In my interpretation there, he was clearly waiting for the hotel to quiet. When is a safe time to carry out this behavior of removing the body from the hotel. And the taxi driver helped him put the body into the trunk, and they went to grandmother's house. And I asked him why he didn't call the police and just report what happened. He said it never crossed his mind. And he said, quote, I assumed they would accuse me, unquote.
Again, what, if anything, do you draw or infer from the efforts to conceal what transpired in the hotel?
This is all behavior that I infer that, he had the presence of mind to appreciate the illegality of what he was doing and the trouble he was in. The legal aspects of his behavior was clearly on his mind, and he's behaving in according with trying to, the detection and evidence issue. At grandmother's house, put the suitcase in a fruit cellar in the basement, and it was Thanksgiving time, and father, stepmother, and an aunt and an uncle were there for Thanksgiving. I remember asking, he said it was cold outside and the body was, quote, preserved, unquote, because of the cold weather. On the following Monday, when grandmother had left for church, he defleshed, unquote, which was his word, the body near a drain in the basement, and he put the parts in 3 trash bags. He said he always, quote, triple bagged so the weight would not rip through. You don't want spilling. He said fist-sized pieces of flesh, about 30 pounds per bag, unquote.
Quote, fist-sized pieces of flesh. That's a grindcore song waiting to happen. Feast-sized pieces of flesh.
When asked why he didn't just cut the limbs off and put them in a trash bag, he said that the, quote, limbs might have been discovered, unquote. Meaning, from what I recall, the bones can poke through a bag or something like that. He put the bones in a blanket and crushed them and put them in bags.
Son of a
He set out about 5 trash bags for pickup on Monday morning and cleaned up the basement. And in the police reports, they described some of the ways he cleaned up and pouring things down the drain to cut down on the smell and things. A week later, he threw the suitcase in the trash the next Monday morning pickup. Back at the hotel in regard to this case, he said he remembered kissing and engaging in mutual masturbation and the victim passing out, Mr. Toomey, and then he passed out. He did not remember any bitter.
And to Austin Rain's point here, if you do become a cult member and join the J-Buzz Nation, we give everybody that is a producer of this content a once a month show. It's going to be coming this next week, actually. We're going to have a members only show. I think I'm probably going to do it on Thursday next week. And yeah, it's a show that is specifically for paying members of this channel. That is not for anyone else. Doesn't get released to the public. It is an intimate show. You know, we'll go cover some true crime. We'll just bullshit. We'll watch some stuff. Yeah, coming this Thursday. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And thank you, Austin, for reminding folks that we are a cult.
Further, when you draw what inference, suggest to the jury what inferences you drew from the disposal activity, the packing it in the bag, the smashing of the bones, what inferences you drew on that with respect to the capacity to appreciate wrongfulness?
These are steps that he's engaging in, behaviors he's going through that you can, a reasonable inference in my opinion is that he clearly was appreciated, had the presence of mind, that he was tuned into the illegality of a situation. The last thing in the world he wanted to do was to have this stuff discovered.
I just really missed that whole back end of that answer. Would you repeat it, Madam Reporter?
I said that.
No, let her report.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, Doc.
These are steps that he's engaging in. Behavior that he's going through is a reasonable inference. In my opinion, he clearly had the presence of mind and knew the illegality of the situation. The last thing in the world he would want to do was have the stuff discovered.
The last thing in the world was what?
Have this stuff discovered.
This stuff is, thanks.
Sorry, would you return to the hotel then?
Well, he did not remember any bitterness or reasons to fight with Mr. Toomey. He said that when he woke up, he was, quote, horrified, unquote, with what he discovered. He said the cutting up and cleaning up at grandmother's was not for sexual purposes, but was strictly, quote, work, unquote, and for disposal purposes. When I asked, he said that during later homicides, he might have gotten some sexual arousement by the dismembering. Then he also said he started taking pictures, and he said he was never questioned about the hotel death, and the death was never apparently reported. He was working or employed during that period of time. He then said that nothing further happened for a couple months and until January, which was this January of '88?
Yes.
And he started returning to bars. He said an individual was waiting for a bus in front of the 219 Club, and it was on a Saturday evening, and this individual, quote, he caught my eye, unquote. He offered him $50 to watch videos, and they took a bus to 57th and National, and then walked to grandmother's house. He said this was the first time he ever brought anybody alive to grandmother's.
We're going to pass the plate and bowl. Oh, shit. $4.99. Thank you very much, Austin. Appreciate that. Let me give you a little bit of a little biggie. Give me the loot. Give me the loot. I haven't played yet.
I'm sober enough
for the morning
to know what I'm doing, and I'm drunk enough to really enjoy doing it.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Austin. Appreciate that. Thank you for coming in and modding as well. Austin on fire, baby. Again, shirts are going to be going out soon. Keep your eyes on people that ordered dank-ass Feral Friday specific tie-dye and acid wash shirts. Mrs. Krampus, $1.99 coming through with a black cat. Hell yeah. Love it. Mrs. Krampus. Boom. Love it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Filling up that plate today for Murder Church. Boom. On fire as well. Thank you very much.
Mother's house. Said the hotel incident made him, quote, bolder. I was drunk enough. I took my chances, unquote.
Just so the jury is clear, you're speaking now of the James Dockstader incident, is that correct?
After the hotel death, after the Mr. Toomey, he said it implied that because of what happened, he now felt, quote, bolder.
CR, come right on in here real quick. Gonna have to give her a little love, baby. Thank you, CR. Appreciate that. The $3 super sticker. Is that a lemon head? I think that is a lemon head. I think he's blowing a kiss, maybe? Say no to globalism. $4.99. Passing the plate and bowl, too. Damn, everybody out here. About to hit the wrong button. Everybody out here about to get fucked up this morning in Murder Church. Love to see it. man. We're not messing around today. Thank you so much. Say no to globalism for the $4.99. Getting her going, baby. Getting him going.
Also said he was drunk enough and he was going to take his chances, unquote. And now we start a new era of people coming to grandmothers where before grandmothers was somewhat of a deterrent. They undressed in the living room. This is, we're talking about Mr. Dockstader now, I believe, correct?
Yes, sir.
And they laid on each other, engaged in homosexual behavior. And he said this, Mr. Dockstader, this particular individual, was, quote, very attractive, unquote. This individual said he had to be home the next morning. He was given the sleeping mixture, and they went to the basement, and Mr. Dockstader passed out. He did not want this individual to leave. Mr. Dahmer said he was, quote, very aroused. He had a very good physique, unquote.
Ain't no reason to.
On the floor.
Ain't no reason to.
He had sex with him while the partner was passed out. Quote, it was not enough to satisfy me. I wanted to be with him longer, unquote. When asked why he just didn't use more sleeping potion to keep him passed out longer, he said that grandmother would eventually be waking up. Quote, so I opted for the strangling method, unquote. He then proceeded to choke him to death, and he admitted that he was, quote, drunk, unquote, during that time. He said they were drinking decaffeinated coffee and Irish cream, and that he was concerned about this particular partner waking up and getting him, Mr. Dahmer, into trouble. He said he strangled him in order to, quote, keep complete control. I could still enjoy his physique, even though he's dead. And they can
Tangled Crochet, passing it around. Love me some Murder Church. I love you being here. Tangled Crochet has been coming through for a minute, and always showing the love as well. Thank you very much, Tangled.
still be very attractive. He had a perfect body, unquote.
With respect to his expressed concern just there about waking up and then he, Mr. Dahmer, getting into trouble, what if any inferences did you draw with respect to that and then the responsibility issues?
Well, he implied that when you drug somebody that sometimes that people may realize they were drugged and that he could get in trouble for doing this. So certainly he said that in this particular case he was concerned about that. And
yes.
In part one of the reasons why
incoming soon. Everyone's invited.
Committed the
clearly
cause of the death.
Murder Church love, baby.
Enjoying his physique. What was the discussion there? What was he referring to at that point?
Exactly what he liked about the body, I do not know. May I continue?
Yes, sir.
I then made the comment that you should have a mannequin. And he said that, yes, indeed, he had earlier brought a home.
He's like, I've got a mannequin, bro.
A mannequin from a local store, and that he went to an Army surplus store and bought a sleeping bag cover or tarp, and he waited in the store until after closing, and then when no one was in the store, he put the mannequin in the tarp and walked out of the store, and he also, the clothes on the mannequin, he also kept. This is when he was living with grandmother's, and he said he used the mannequin for sexual purposes for about a month. I have here, he masturbated to the mannequin. I don't know if two are on, but he masturbated to the mannequin and undressed it. He kept it for about a month, and then grandmother discovered it in the closet, and then he had to throw it out in the trash.
Is there a particular psychiatric name for using a mannequin or statute for such a purpose?
Oh, not officially, but I would assume you could probably coin one. But
sometimes referred to as Pygmalianism.
I don't know.
Okay.
Again, we had to terminate our interview because of the time on the jail routine. And these are, again, kind of last-minute questions. And he said that later homicides get, quote, stranger, unquote. And then he told me about eating body parts of 2 victims, quote, 10 pounds of muscle and 1 heart, unquote. When asked how he prepared them, he said he, quote, fried them in a skillet and that they tasted like beef, unquote. When asked why he would do this, he said he was, quote, curious that they were part of me. I felt some thrill, unquote. He also said when he began saving body parts, quote, for remembrance, not a total waste, unquote. When asked about the illegality of what he was doing, he said, quote, it became a compulsion, my main focus for living, implying his desire to have homosexual experience in this fashion. He implied that the body parts later had value to him, and that ended our second interview.
And that had been about 3 hours or so, the second interview?
2 o'clock to 5 o'clock on October 23rd, 1991.
There came a time then that you returned to meet with Mr. Dahmer, did there not?
Yes, I did.
And that was on the 13th day of November in 1991?
That's true, in the same room here in the safety building from 1 o'clock to 4:30 in the afternoon.
In the interval between this, would you be yourself digesting more information that you'd be receiving from my office or through other sources, assessing that, reviewing your notes, determining what further questions you might wish to put?
Yes, material was coming in. Material was being provided.
Then you returned to the safety building here on November 13, 1991, to the same room and initiated your third interview of Mr. Dahmer, is that correct?
That's true.
Just so while we make it, is that Mr. Dahmer here in the courtroom?
Stipulate.
And
yes, he is.
And were you again in the room with him alone?
Yes, I was.
And it's just you and he, and you're talking back and forth?
That's true.
Would you proceed to communicate to the jury what transpired at the third interview of Mr. Dahmer, the one of November 13, 1991?
Okay, we have to hold up for a minute so the reporter can change her paper. Okay, we may continue at this point.
Showing a lot of the victims' families there.
Oh, I mentioned that he hadn't talked to any detectives for about 2 months, and about his future he made the comment of, quote, endless years of nothingness, unquote.
I think at this point, maybe let's skip the rest of that
Right.
paragraph. It relates to issues that
Right.
the court will instruct on.
He mentioned having a neurological evaluation scheduled in the near future. He mentioned that he had psychological testing by Dr. Smale and Anderson. And I tried to develop some time frames for myself, some organization to this volume of data here. When asked, he said he had 3 residences in Milwaukee. The first with his grandmother, and he said 4 homicides took place there. And then the second residence was at 24th and Wells for about 6 months. Around 86, 87, and while there he was only involved with, quote, just pictures, no violence there, unquote. And then the third residence was at 25th Street, and he moved there in late 1989, and that's where he was living until his arrest. And he said all the other homicides took place there.
Sleeping Booty is a great name, first of all.
The remaining 12. He denied that any homicides occurred anywhere else except the original one in Ohio.
Was it your understanding that he was including the Tuomi, the disposal of the Tuomi body, as among the 4 homicides occurring at the grandmother's house?
You don't get muted or blocked. You get put on the screen for jokes like that here.
Yes. Yes.
Although technically it occurred at the Ambassador Hotel.
He also said he was not being charged in that case. He said the third homicide, or the first at his grandmother's house, and this is, this time he thought his name was Doc Stater, and he said that...
Just so it's clear to the jury, the first homicide was Hicks, is that correct?
Yeah, but the first at grandmother's house.
No, I'm speaking now of the first, because when you say the third at the first at grandmother's house, the first was Hicks, is that correct, in Bath, Ohio?
Yes.
Second one was the death at the Ambassador Hotel of Mr. Tomey?
True.
Right, and then you're speaking of the third homicide, which is?
The third historically, but the first at grandmother's house.
Okay, please proceed then.
He thought his name was Doc Stater, and he said that this individual was, quote, just there for the evening, a Native American, unquote. He said he was on his way to the 219 bar when he saw Doc Stater standing at the corner, approached him, offered him $50 to return to grandmother's and be videotaped. They took the bus and walked the rest of the way to grandmother's. They were in the living room and, quote, made small talk, and, quote, grandmother was asleep upstairs, and they undressed and laid around on the sofa, unquote, for about an hour. They had oral sex. Doc Stater had to be back in the morning. And they went to the basement, and then Doc Stater, drank the mixture. They kissed and laid around for a while, and then Doc Stater passes out, and then Mr. Dahmer strangled him with his hands. Quote, it just took a few minutes, unquote, and he expressed surprise that it didn't take longer. When asked why he killed him, he said, quote, that's the only way I could keep him there, unquote. And if I interject,
oh God, yeah.
Obviously.
Remember last week, the nipple touching. That was a big debate in the chat. Was he grabbing his nipple?
Everybody wants to know what is the motive for the killing, and certainly in part, this is very much the formulation Mr. Dahmer presented me, that very much the deaths were incurred as a way to keep the people with him. Kept his body for a week, and he did want the body for a period of time. And then we discussed the various choices he had before killing him. He agreed that his first choice would have been to have Mr. Doc Stater stay with him for several days or a week, alive. Quote, if he would have cooperated, comma, I would not have had to kill him, unquote. Again, interpreting here, well, I'll continue. He said the second, quote, second best alternative was to have him there dead. Quote, he wasn't going to go anywhere, unquote. He said he would fondle and lay with the body, quote, only when the house was empty, unquote. This must have been during the subsequent days. He kept the body in the basement fruit cellar, and the body was nude. He would have anal sex with the body and lay on it. Then he again said that he did not like anal sex done to him, but did enjoy doing it to others. He also said he masturbated before defleshing, unquote, which is his word. He's Mr. Tomey in the basement. And then he mentioned keeping the skulls of Tomey and Doc Stater. He again said the reason he killed Doc Stater was, quote, the only way to have complete control and have them stay, unquote, for sexual purposes. He wanted them for sexual purposes. An object, quote, their physical attraction was the deciding factor in who I picked, referring to who he picked to pick up or bring home. He said it first crossed his mind to use a body.
Just at this point, in terms of the reason that he didn't want them to leave, was that for sexual, so he could continue the sexual purposes with the body?
It's a substitute, temporary prolongation of the relationship.
And that is predominantly a sexual relationship.
His interest in them was sexual. Their utilitarian value to him was sexual. It wasn't necessarily friendship, it was sexual. He said it crossed his mind to use a body for sexual purposes when he was about 14 years old and in junior high school. He fantasized having a body to use like a mannequin. He agreed that, quote, the ideal situation, unquote, sexually would be to have the other individual cooperate with him, live with him, and travel with him. The importance here is trying to assess where is this person sexually and what are his preferences and where does his interest and desires lie. And these kind of comments certainly reflect that they're not necessarily pure necrophilic desires, and that I don't have any sexual arousal with only unless they're dead. That's not true. Son of a bitch! He's implying here that his first choice would be a relationship, but tragically and unfortunately, he said that this alternative, quote, never materialized, unquote, so he did this second best thing. He said he never went on a long weekend or a trip. I asked him with another gay person. He said he never had a close homosexual relationship, and he never met anyone who would do that with him. In my last interview, jumping ahead, I somewhat chided him about this, or that he didn't try hard enough, and that this might have been possible, but he didn't try hard enough, and he tended to agree. He went to the bathhouse in Milwaukee for about 2 years, and no homicides occurred during that time. He said he did experiment with the sleeping mixture first at the bathhouse, and that his bathhouse sexual behavior, quote, kept me satisfied for a while, unquote. And then after the closure of the bathhouse, the homicide started. He said the closing ended his ability to find satisfaction for one night, and he found this frustrating. He was living with his grandmother at the time, and therefore he could not bring some people home to her house. And he denied having any interest in killing any of his sexual partners at the bathhouse, and just settled for the one-night stands. Again,
guess I'll just settle for a one-night stand. I guess I won't murder you and cut you into pieces and defile your corpse. I guess I'll let that slide this one time since we're here in the bathhouses of all places. I don't want to mess this place up. Jeez. Let's go to my grandma's. You want to go to my grandma's real quick? Man, she's got some really good coffee.
The issue, how much of his drive is necrophilic in nature and how much is not. He then said his sexual behavior progressed to, quote, wanting more, unquote. He then started using the hotels in Milwaukee and did this for a few months, again, always on weekends. And he went to a hotel about 15 times and about half to each hotel, always on weekends, never during the week because he was at work. He did not have time to go to bars to pick up men during the week because of his job.
Could you stop at that point and tell the jury what observations or conclusions?
Like, where did Emily go? I was just feeding her yesterday. Lunch is ready. Oh, sweet.
Or inferences you draw from that he was restricting these activities and could restrict these activities to weekends.
It's just, he has the interest during the time. The interest is with him. It doesn't go away. The issue is, when does he act on it, do something about it? And such factors as being employed, his job, outside structure like that, he was able to refrain, and he had some control over as to when he followed through with his sexual desires. He said he used the sleeping mixture each time at the hotels, and the individual would wake up and leave. And then he stopped using these hotels after the Tommy death at the hotel. After the Tommy case, he said he took 2 or 3 men back to his grandmother's who he did not kill, and they later left. He said there were 4 homicides at grandmother's, including the Tommy case. When asked how he decided which ones he let go, here these men are showing up at grandmother's, and some don't believe, and some do. He said, quote, "Those that left I met while I was quite drunk. I lost my attraction to them as I was sobering up," unquote. Interpreting here this, if in fact, and this has been commented on by other people, but basically that the attraction issue was so important to him that his control was very much related to the attraction issue, and that he could simply let somebody go if he was not attracted. And that relates to the conformity issue.
That would mean that he would not have either a dead, if he let the person go, he would enjoy them sexually before they left, but he could forego any activity with a dead body when he decided to let them go. Is that correct?
Yes, he did not feel a need to kill them because he didn't feel that attracted to them, or they weren't the type he wanted to hang on to. Had a second residence, he brought
Don't be being too sexy around Jeffrey Dahmer.
one individual back, and they had sex, and the individual left. And he again said that he did not kill this individual because he did not want to keep him. That same afternoon, he took a picture of a Laotian male, and the police were later called, and he was arrested. He said he wasn't going to hotels while living at his second residence, and any homosexual contacts during that time took place in the, quote, viewing booths, unquote, at magazine stores. He and the other gay person would kiss and masturbate each other in the booth. At his third residence, he said 12 homicides took place there. He estimated that 3 individuals came back there with him, and he did not kill them, and they left.
Then you would draw the same inferences you drew from the similar decisions that he made at the grandmother's house to presumably would have sex while alive and then forego the decision to have sex with them after death by not killing them.
Right. What reasoning or decision, what reasoning was he doing that...
Is that a fart? Did you guys hear that? 414.
From the similar decisions that he made at the grandmother's
Keep your ears peeled for a fart here.
Son of a bitch!
house.
We had an Ed Kemper fart live on Publicly Buzzed Live. Do we have a Jeffrey Dahmer fart live?
To presumably would have sex while alive and then forego the decision to have sex with them after death by not killing them.
Right. What reasoning or decision, what reasoning...
That was a fart, right? Like, am I crazy? I went too far back, but hold on.
By not killing them.
Right. What reasoning or decision, what reason...
Was that the judge? The judge is looking around now like, I hope nobody noticed that.
By not killing them.
Right.
Watch the judge's face here.
What...
And his body, his reaction.
Reasoning or decision...
That was the fucking judge, bro! Dixie tried to save it, nose blowing. I'm saying it's the judge. He moved back too damn perfect.
Decision to have sex with them after...
You're only going to get deep analysis here on Publicly Buzzed Live, baby.
Death, by not killing them.
Right. What reasoning or decision, what reasoning was he doing that determined which ones left and which ones stayed? And he said that in regard to the first individual that left, that he himself, Mr. Dahmer, drank the wrong cup with a mixture in it, and he himself passed out. The other individual left and robbed Mr. Dahmer of about $300. The other two individuals that survived or were not killed were there for the night and left in the morning. And when asked why he didn't kill them, he said that sometimes his hangover was so bad that he didn't have the, quote, energy to kill them, unquote, or keep them, or that they were not attractive enough to him. Which again, simply my interpretation, to see fatigue factor, hangover factor, this type of thing, if this was he could refrain if this variable or this factor was there. At least he said this was one of the reasons he refrained in these individuals. He agreed that in total there were only 15 individuals brought back to his third residence. That he only had homosexual contacts at his residence or at the bathhouse in Chicago while living at his third residence.
Did he ever tell you whether or not he was excluded from the bathhouses at Chicago?
Excluded, kicked out? No.
To the best of your knowledge, he always...
Professional opinion, Debbie Schultz. I'm a nurse and I call that a fart. We'll take that.
Up to the day of arrest, he always had access to the bathhouses in Chicago. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. He estimated he made about 10 trips to Chicago and 2 nights per trip. He went down there after he was committing the homicides at his residence. He went down to Chicago to find someone to bring back to his residence.
Debbie's going to have to be brought in front of everyone and explain exactly why she is an expert. And then she's going to have to face down the barrel of McCain, telling her why you're not a nurse, why you should have never been a nurse. You don't know what a fart sounds like, Debbie.
Keep them, I use the word scouting trip. 2 people came back with him. He found or met the first one at a Chicago bus stop, and the second one came from a bar in Chicago, and he gave the name of the bar. Both these individuals he killed back in Milwaukee. He said, quote, just the distance.
I was too busy blaming it on the judge.
Was greater. The Chicago guys had definite time limits, meaning they couldn't stay that long in Milwaukee. I liked Chicago better, greater variety, better nightclubs, unquote. He then said that killing them was not the satisfying part. He's referring to the victims in general. Quote, killing was just a means to an end, unquote. And the issue here is the actual taking of life sexually arousing or stimulating in a sexually sadistic way, because there is such a thing as a sadomasochistic behavior. And he repeatedly stated that this was not sexually sadistic or that he was getting any joy or arousal from the killing. It was a step he had to take to achieve his desired end. He said, quote, killing was just a means to an end, unquote. He then brought up the zombie issue, which we'll get to later, but then he went back to, I questioned him more about the motive for the killing. He said, quote, no, I didn't get a kick out of that at all. That's why I tried to make it as painless as possible while they were asleep. I wasn't into torture, unquote. He also said the homicides were not, quote, hate-motivated crimes, unquote. 7 out of the 17 were not black, and therefore they were not racially motivated crimes. And he was saying this as an attempt to disclaim any of the allegations against him. He said Mr. Hicks and Cash D and the last victim were not gay, and he mentioned possibly some others were not gay also. He said these individuals came back to his residence for money, and he called them, quote, hustler type, unquote, prostitutes, unquote, heterosexual men who prostituted themselves for money. Therefore, his motivation was not homosexual hate crimes. Quote, I was not targeting any particular race. Hate was not my motive. Lust was, he said. Then he again stated that the killing was not, and the dismembering was not part of his sexual act. While at his third residence, he did go to bookstores for sexual purposes.
I just interrupted that point. The lust you're speaking of is the lust for sex?
Sexual lust, desire. At his third residence, he did not go to bookstores for sexual purposes. He just went to Chicago or used his apartment. He was no longer using hotels. He made the comment about the bathhouse business and said they call themselves health clubs, but their, quote, their real business is a homosexual brothel, unquote. He said these facilities are open, quote, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unquote. He then said, quote, I wanted a remembrance to keep, unquote. He then boiled and painted the skulls. and he had a complete skeleton. And when I asked him if he, again, had any pleasure or excitement out of killing them, he said, quote, "That's a misconception," unquote. I then asked him what he thought was wrong with him. And he said, quote, "My consuming lust to experience their bodies, the desire never left. There were times I couldn't fulfill it because of the time and work reasons. The focus of my life was to find fulfillment and satisfaction with good-looking guys. Cannibalism and the saving of body parts were just offshoots." That's his words. "Just having them there for a few nights was not enough. Then I got into the offshoots. They couldn't be kept indefinitely." So we're kind of starting a new phase here where we grow from a few hours of a drug state to a few days, to a few hours to a few days of a deceased body phase, and now we're into having some mementos after the body has to be disposed of. He said the bodies could be left intact for a few days and then he would have to dispose of them. He expressed surprise that the last body decomposed so rapidly and that there's some maggots on the face within a couple days. He would kill them and use their bodies for a few days. Before the body decomposed, he said 2 or 3 days tops, meaning 2 or 3 days max, that he could have access to their bodies for sexual purposes. He would, quote, "lay around, body rubbing, masturbation, and anal sex," unquote, with the bodies. He said he never heard of any gay person drugging his sexual contacts or killing his contacts in order to keep them. Quote, "I wasn't trying to imitate anyone. All the ideas came from within," unquote. Then he mentioned a article.
Say that there's a deep discussion going on whether or not it was a fart or a chair. Only the important stuff is discussed here on Publicly Buzzed Live. Want that to be put across clearly. But in the poll, fart or chair, 29 votes, 90% overwhelmingly think that it is a fart. And as Bob Motta said, and any time you have to ask whether it's a fart or a chair, it's always a fart.
This is an article that has been published comparing him to another person?
Perhaps. He said, quote, "I carried it much too far, comma, that's for sure," unquote, meaning his sexual behavior. He said it was common that his contacts would want to stay, but they couldn't, and they had to leave, and thus he had to kill them to keep them, which is pretty unfortunate. He said, quote, "I was trying to think of a way to not have to kill them," unquote. And then we discussed his, quote, "zombie," unquote, cases. That was his word. He said he would drill a small hole through the top of the skull and into the brain, and he did this on about 4 or 5 victims. He used a baster, and he described where he got it, and he injected diluted muriatic acid into the skull. And this was the same acid he used to, quote, acidify the skeletons, half acid and half water. He then said the body parts would get, quote, mushy, unquote, and he would flush the mixture down the toilet. He would scoop it out of the barrel after about 2 weeks and put it in the toilet. He said he kept 11 skulls. Quote, "Some didn't dry out so well, so I destroyed them," unquote.
Could you just pause a minute? Had there been discussion of how he was disposing of the flesh, or basically the bones, when you're talking now about the apartment building on North 25th, is that correct?
Yeah, that discussion comes later. This whole interview was trying to get an overall time frames and some degree of categorization as to where things are going on, and we weren't into the specific names yet.
There's a later, more detailed discussion about the disposal.
He said drilling the hole in the skull was, quote, "an experiment. It never worked out," unquote. He said he tried this technique on his last 4 or 5 victims. He put acid in the hole on 4 of the victims and boiling water in 1 of the victims. He said the 5 individuals did not get into a, quote, zombie, unquote, state. And he said he injected them while they were drugged. He wanted
shit. Austin Rain's going to come through here, baby. Let's do it. Gifting out a membership. R Whip. That's awesome. I just said what's up to R Whip. I don't see that name often in the chat. That's fucking awesome. R Whip, welcome to being a member here at Publicly Buzzed. Welcome in the J-Bo Nation, baby. The J-Buzz Nation, if you will. Welcome to the party. And we will crack you 3 perfectly poured beverages right here. I know it's a little early. It's 11 a.m., but we do it right, baby. I'm bad, man. Thank you, Austin. Seriously, appreciate that. And beers in the chat, I'm sure, are flowing right now. If not, I'm going to throw a few in there myself. Boom.
Individuals to be, this is a motive for the drilling. He wanted the individuals to be, quote, open to my suggestion. I wanted an indefinite effect, unquote. The purpose was that they would be alive, the bodies would be preserved, but their personality would be, quote, zombied. So I wouldn't have to go out looking for partners, unquote. So this is an attempt to start a new routine or pattern. He put acid into the skulls of 4 individuals. On the first one...
and you're not going to believe this. That's 1 try. That was the first try. Nothing else yesterday in the studio happened in 1 try. The camera, the lights, which I'm still fucking with all this stuff. None of this is in place yet. But that 1 try hang up, I kind of just, oh my God, I was happy about that. And it was the end of the day. This was the last thing I hung up. I was like, I just need something to work out perfectly right now. And it did. And I'm happy with that one. Again, it's beautiful though. Yeah, anybody that needs a sign, yeah, get with Jay's brother, man. I don't have the link specifically right here, but I know Jay posted it earlier. I need to get that just to kind of promote him because Dan also got one of these signs, so he should be having his in the background as well.
He injected the acid twice, and the individual...
Yeah, I didn't even see your thing. That must take some serious mention. Dude, seriously, I bought it. I bought it.
Was killed. And the individual he injected with boiling water, he said, quote, he was up and about for 1 day after the injection. This is after being questioned. I had to work, so I gave him a 2nd dose of boiling water and left for work.
There it is.
When I returned the next morning...
AthleteLogos.com. Yeah. I'm going to put that in the chat. I'm going to put that as a... tell your brother I'm going to be promoting him on here, baby. Hold on.
He said this individual...
I might get some more shit.
...was the one he picked up at the bar in Chicago, Mr. Weinberger. He would inject while the individual was asleep or passed out. And then I asked him, I said, and he said he's told this to other doctors and his attorney. When I asked, he said this individual was, quote, up and about, unquote, for 1 day. He said this victim seemed, quote, seemed tired. He talked in short sentences. He seemed confused. We didn't have any sexual contact. I was more interested in finishing the 12-pack in the fridge, unquote.
You tell the jury what inferences you drew from that. This is Mr. Weinberger has survived the initial drilling and insertion of the acid, and he departs for a while, returns, and find him still up and about, or not at least alive, but does not turn to exercise sexual activities with him. Did you draw any inferences or conclusions from that, or observations?
From what I recall, as he was talking about this, the main thing was this experiment. This was a major thing for him. You have to appreciate his goal is to have this
see if this works.
Completely cooperative, passive individual that will
definitely
him do whatever he, Mr. Dahmer, wants to do.
That's always something I worry about too. You know, you don't want to overlap someone else. You don't want to like take someone else's heat or whatever with the streaming schedule. But yeah, you got to get in there, Bob. Your personality, man. mean, you're already killing the podcast game, like, and YouTube's just matches up perfectly with it. I need to start getting these out into like podcast form, but it's just another level.
Actually, and that's what he's trying to strive for. But the drawback of killing people is that, you know, that has its drawbacks also. The work involved, the disposal problem, he wanted a different approach, and this is one he was experimenting with. So I think during that time, his involvement with the experiment and the procedures, I think took priority in an experimental way, and that maybe his sexual behavior with them had less priority, and perhaps that's why he did not involve himself sexually. When asked, he said he tried to be as, quote, painless as possible, unquote, when he killed the victims. When asked how he did this, he said he strangled them while they were passed out, quote, all except for the last 4 or 5 victims, unquote, referring to the drilling.
Does that not work?
He remembered the names of these last victims as being Lindsay,
Oh, shit, I hit the wrong
a
thing.
deaf mute individual, the Laotian, and Weinberger. When asked if he stabbed one of the
There it is.
victims,
Boom.
he said that he, quote,
AthleteLogos.com.
forgot, unquote,
Few exclamation point logos in the chat. That is Jay's brother, and as you can tell right here behind me, he does fantastic work.
he said that he stabbed Miller, quote, because the pills were wearing off, unquote, and he cut Miller's neck. He said he kept all 4 of the skulls from the victims at grandmother's house for a few days, and then, quote, disposed of them. Dash, I didn't feel safe keeping them. They would have been discovered while I was at work, unquote. So he's living at grandmother's, he's got some skulls at home, and he's off at work. So he's concerned about that. He did keep the skull of the last grandmother case, and again, he's not, refers to the individual he met at the Lacage.
Oh, shit, okay. I see what you're saying.
In regard to the other 12, he said he did not keep 2 of the skulls because they, quote, did not dry out well, unquote. Kept 11 skulls total. Painted them with spray paint, quote, fake granite, to give them an artificial appearance. So when I displayed them in the bedroom, so they wouldn't look real. To be on the safe side, so they would look like artificial skulls. If they looked real, I would get in trouble. In case of a break-in, to play it safe, it also gave them a uniform appearance after the bleaching. And my interpretation here is that, and I asked him about it, he said, indeed, if his place was broken into like anybody else is broken into, that the robber or the burglar, even though the burglar is committing a crime on Mr. Dahmer's apartment, he was concerned about the actual robber turning him into the police. So here, you know, let's say one criminal is reporting another criminal, so to speak. So that's why the artificial paint, and this, again, I infer clearly reflects that he was...
We deal with a lot of serious stuff on here. Trigger warning for all the content that you do see. This video is about to go into the next one. And let's see if the psychiatrist is still on there. But, yeah, I mean, it says comedy in our title for a reason. You know, we get a little bit goofier on here, but we still cover a lot of serious subject matter. Next, we're going, part 3. Yeah, we are not done with Dr. Frederick Fosdell at all. We still have a little bit more time with him, with the old lip smacker. I do hate the lip smacking. The lip smacking is absolutely brutal. Again, thank you everyone for hanging out this morning. Appreciate the hell out of it. Hit the like. Helps us out in the algorithm. A lot of people come through here today. Another super successful murder church. Always growing here. Absolutely love it. And... yeah, man, share this out to your communities. Let people know that you're watching Murder Church here on this Sunday. And after this, the portal is going to take you to a stream that Jay is doing tomorrow. So prepare for make sure that you tuck all limbs inside when you go into the portal. Because when you come out the other side, sometimes you get stuck. Sometimes people lose body parts. And I've found that most people, if they do the tuck, they come out on the other side fairly okay. So, yeah, we're going to keep on rolling. After this ends, I will pop up a little bit of a Murder Church stinger, baby. And, yeah, and don't forget, tomorrow is a special, I repeat, a special presentation from Publicly Buzzed. As we're going to be covering the Karen Reed trial with the catalyst. All right, the person that is getting it out there, the person that was on court TV talking about it, the person that has been killing it, quite frankly, is making it go viral in the true crime community, and not just the true crime community. Everyone is talking about the Karen Reed case, and so yeah, Turbo is going to be hanging out on here, and we're super excited to have him. So good stuff, baby, happening here at Publicly Buzzed.
Aware of the wrongfulness of his behavior. When asked what he was worried about, he said that he was concerned about a possible break-in and the burglar reporting him to the police, and he agreed with me that he was concerned about getting caught. He said, quote, "I did everything in my power so that wouldn't happen. I went to great pains to not be discovered," unquote.
3 minutes to 12. I'm not sure what the court's agenda is.
This is a good breaking point, sure.
Yeah.
We'll break for lunch, and how about coming back at 1 o'clock?
Right.
Court's in recess.
All right, please.
All right, got another hour here with Frederick Fosdell. I think that's going to be the end of him after this against psychiatrist. And yeah, let me hit you guys with real quick Murder Church stinger, and we'll keep rocking and rolling, baby.
Mr. McCann, you may continue.
Doctor, you're into your second interview with the defendant. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, I am.
Would you resume where you were? Do you know where you were precisely?
Yes, I do. Would
you please resume? This is in the second interview. It's here in the safety building in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it's 1023-91, and you're in a building, in a room not far from where we are presently. Is that correct?
That's true.
All right. Would you and the defendant are alone, and you're continuing your examination of him. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Would you please proceed?
I then talked about, quote, acidifying, A-C-I-D-I-F-Y-N-G, unquote. He had two 30-gallon barrels, and he used acid, and he would make the body parts into what he called, quote, sludge, and then flush this down the toilet. He said he, quote, gave up, unquote, on using trash bags. He said he disposed of the body parts in part half through trash bags and about half through the acid flush routine. He said that if the sludge barrel was full, he would then use a trash bag for flesh. He would not put bones in a trash bag, however, and there was too much of a chance for them to be discovered. He said, quote, "They wouldn't decompose, so I put all the bones in the acid," unquote. In the trash bag, he would just put fist-sized chunks of flesh. If I didn't have room in the barrel, cut in small pieces, 25 pounds in each bag, 3 bags per pickup, all triple bagged, unquote. He said 3 trash bags would take care of all the flesh. He would triple bag to, quote, ensure there wouldn't be breakage, unquote. In conclusion, he said that 11 victims were, quote, acidified, unquote. He kept one skeleton, quote, one of the more attractive ones, which was Miller, and his skeleton dried out so well, unquote. He said the 2 acidifying barrels were in the hallway closet. He also had an 80-gallon pot for cleaning heads, and he would add Soilex, S-O-I-L-E-X. He said this was the same material used for removing wallpaper. He was able to use the body for sexual purposes for a couple days, and during that time he would take pictures, quote, to remember that what they looked like. The physique was the main attraction, to remember them, to use the pictures later to masturbate. Then the time came to get rid of the body, and the labor, L-A-B-O-R, labor begins, unquote. Again, confirming that the cleanup, the disposal was not a sexually motivated act. Would put the body in a bathtub, and and he described how he dismembered and cut, and how he would deflesh. He would put parts into a trash bag, or if he was going to acidify, he would put them directly into the barrel, which was alongside the bathtub apparently. He always saved the head and would put it in the freezer. I think he said a 5 cubic foot freezer. He bought it at a store in a particular mall, quote, for the storing of body parts, unquote. This was bought 2 months after the first victim at his third residence, which he thought was Cash D.
Doctor, just at one point, I don't think you quoted exactly what he would do when you put the body in the bathtub.
Well, that was on purpose.
Right, would you do that?
He would cut down the front to the pelvic area, then cut up the organs and deflesh the bones.
Did he say at that time he would do anything particular to the body? Did he add anything other? Did you make note of what he said at that point? Were you making notes of that?
That's what he told me, what I just read to you.
Did he tell you anything further with respect to what he would do when he would slit the body down from the sternum to the pelvic area?
No, he did not. Not at this point, anyway.
Would you proceed?
When asked, he said, quote, "I have been doing so many horrible things that I became desensitized," which was his word. I was completely desensitized. It didn't bother me. It had to be done to dispose of the remains. The ambassador incident was a mistake. I had to rush around to make sure it wasn't discovered, meaning the ambassador incident. The only way I knew how to dispose of it, I couldn't leave a whole body in the trunk. He implied that the cutting up bothered him the first time. It got progressively easier to do. It implied that the Hicks and the ambassador Tomei incident were harder to do. And then he got...
Excuse me, doctor, would you reread what you just said? Or harder to do or hard?
It got progressively easier to do. Hicks and the ambassador incident were hard to do. It was just part of the procedure, and he agreed with me that a human being can adapt to anything, like shooting people in combat.
Doctor, I'd like to ask your question too at this point. As part of your medical training program, your own passage through medical school, there is a course that involves the assignment of a cadaver to you as a student. Is that correct?
Freshman anatomy.
Yes. And every medical student goes through that program. Is that correct? Is it natural the first time that even when you're cutting a cadaver in medical school, for some people it's difficult to do? Is that correct?
Oh, I think it's a natural reaction to get over the squeamishness, and yeah, very definitely that was a thing you had to become desensitized to, and
does that
see it in a more professional perspective and change your orientation in order to do it.
I would object at this time to the analogy because it is not a matter here. We're dealing only with dead people. Cadavers are people that are delivered who are already dead, and I think it's unfair to use this analogy. Objection.
I just wanted to point out the issue of
I think whatever point was to be made has been made. Let's go on to the next question.
Would you continue, Doctor?
He said the bones always went into the acid barrel, except for the skeleton he saved. He put this into the kettle and removed the flesh and cleaned the bones and, quote, laid them out to dry, unquote. He said he would try to do one body at a time, one barrel for the bones and one for the flesh. Would soak for about 2 weeks in the acid solution and then would take the barrels into the bathroom and used a plastic scooper. It took about a half hour to empty the barrel into the toilet and it used about 10 flushes. The toilet never clogged. He would then rinse and clean out the barrels. I asked him if he wasn't getting some overlap between his victims, and he said that towards the end there was an overlap. He mentioned the deaf-mute and the Laotian overlapped, and the black individual he met at 27th Street and Weinberger overlapped. He put their flesh in trash bags. He never had two sets of body parts in the same acid barrel. When asked why they overlapped, he said, quote, "I didn't have the time or energy to deflesh them," unquote. Until he got around to defleshing them, in these later cases, he put the body into his bathtub with a bleach water solution, quote, "to keep the smell down," unquote. He then picked up his next victim, and when he defleshed this victim, he would deflesh the previous victim. He did them both together. When asked, he said the latter victim would not know that there was a body in the tub. And he agreed with me that he, quote, "got lazy," unquote, which were his words about properly disposing of the bodies.
Doctor, did he at any time in your discussion with him about what the disposal business ever talk about engaging in a ritual of any type as he dismembered these bodies?
No, he did not.
Would you continue?
Said a second to last victim, Weinberger, was dead for about a week and he kept him in the bathtub in the bleach water solution, quote, "to keep the smell down and keep them preserved until I could deflesh them," unquote. After he used his last victim for sexual purposes for a couple days, he then disposed of he and Weinberger at the same time. He had two bodies kept in the tub in this manner in the bleach water solution. When asked if he ever took a bath, he said he took showers and he would drain the tub and shower with the body in the tub, and he showered about 3 times a week. When asked, he said he was employed on a regular basis and worked until his second to last victim, and this is a victim that he called in sick and lost his job. He said the deaths of the 12 victims were spread out over 2 years, and 6 were in 1991. He said that after the third or fourth victim, the dismembering and the defleshing, quote, "became pretty automatic," unquote. When asked, again said that two or three individuals at grandmother's woke up and left or were let go. There were also 2 or 3 such individuals at his last residence.
That's the residence at 25th and Kilburn where the 12 other people were slain?
Yes. He said the, quote, "the urge was to keep them with me, to masturbate and play with them. This override any normal hesitation to have second thoughts about killing them."
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Unquote. And my interpretation is that his desire for sexual pleasure overrode the taking of life issue, which I had discussed with him previously. If I may elaborate on that, we had discussed,
And I was muted! Son of a bitch! I was over here doing something on the side. Okay.
what's wrong with you, and the issue is that to do what he was doing,
It happens.
There's this balance between his sexual pleasure and the life of the other individual, and to sacrifice somebody for your sexual pleasure, that desire overrode the whatever value he had about taking of life. Again, when asked what was wrong with him, he said, quote, "an inability to make moral and rational decisions and to resist the sexual lust I had. It canceled out all normal, rational thoughts," unquote. on an earlier interview, he did mention that somebody does make a 151 proof rum, and I kind of doubted it. Then I asked him again, and he said, yes, indeed, this company does make a 151 proof rum. And said he usually drank it, and the victims commonly drank decaffeinated coffee and Irish cream. He said, quote, it's expensive, referring to the Irish cream, but tastes good. The hot coffee would dissolve the pill, unquote. He never told me about grinding up pills beforehand. He would usually drink rum and Coke. He said the victim was usually intoxicated and that both he and the victim had usually been drinking, which again reflects the, what I think is very important, the contribution of alcohol to the dissolution of control. Drinking earlier in the evening and before taking the sleeping mixture. And I shared with him that it was pretty unwise and reckless to give anyone who was intoxicated sleeping pills, and he agreed with that. He said that he almost killed one of his partners earlier while experimenting at the bathhouse. He almost killed him with a sleeping potion. He gave him 5 tablets, and then the person didn't respond in the morning sufficiently. Called the EMS to the bathhouse, and Mr. Dahmer actually rode with the individual in the ambulance to the hospital. And I asked what they decided, and he said that the hospital thought the individual had drank too much. Again, when discussing the
I was talking so much shit, you guys don't even know.
Disregard for human life issue. He said, he, quote, viewed them as objects, strangers. If I knew them, I could not have done it. Also the alcohol. So here he's saying that he could have refrained or conformed his conduct if they were not objects or strangers to him, and that simply knowing them better would have helped his control, and that he could not have done it had he been more personally involved with them. That relates to the control conformity issue, suggests that this was a factor. He said that both he and the individual he picked up had been drinking, and they both would feel somewhat intoxicated. They would return to his apartment and drink there, usually beer or rum. He was usually intoxicated when he gave them the sleeping mixture. A couple times he was somewhat sober, and I'm asking these questions. Somewhat sober when he gave them the mixture. He had drank earlier, but he did not necessarily always feel intoxicated. He said, quote, I need about a 6-pack to get buzzed, unquote. He would continue to drink
Jeff needs a 6er, bro.
beer after they were drugged and passed out, or would drink the 151 proof rum before and after the victim passed out. More commonly, he would just drink beer. When asked, he said he used a nylon strap to choke the last 5 or 6 victims. He said it was, quote, quicker, unquote. He bought it for strangulation purposes. He killed 3 or 4 of them when he was feeling somewhat sober. He said, quote, it made it a little more difficult, unquote, meaning that being more sober made it harder to do, which, let's say his conscience was more intact when he was sober. When he strangled the others, he was, quote, somewhat drunk, and he was not bothered, except for the ambassador case. Then I asked, and he said he did not blame alcohol and was not attributing his behavior to alcohol. He said, quote, it, referring to the alcohol, just put me in a better mood. It made me feel, it increased the lustful desire. It removes inhibitions, unquote. And what that means is that alcohol does remove inhibitions, as most of us know, and we can do and say things while intoxicated that we would not do sober. Again, when discussing his attitude about the life of the victims and what was wrong with him, he said, quote, the lustful desire overpowered any normal moral choices, meaning that his lust, being a strong sexual desire, overpowered his normal sense of decisions made by his conscience. When asked about why his sex drive should be so strong as to overcome his conscience, so to speak. He said, quote, "A consuming interest, the only thing that gave me any sense of fulfillment and satisfaction, a continuous urge, relentless is a good way to put it, for physical pleasure and sensation," unquote. And he agreed that he was often having several orgasms a day. He said he spent, quote, "thousands," unquote, "of dollars on videos and pornography. Estimated he owned about 30 videotapes and, quote, "countless," unquote, "magazines," which raises the issue of outside external influences on his behavior, the issue of being influenced by what you read and see, that he was in fact being influenced by what he was reading and seeing, that this was a contributory factor that helped him participate in these offenses. He said, quote, "I just like the ones that showcase the physique," unquote. And he mentioned some places where he got the materials, such as the 27th Street bookstore, the J&R News, and the Denmark, which he said burned down. When asked if pornography in the videos caused his behavior, he said, quote, "They fueled it, definitely fueled the desire," unquote. He said the videos and the magazines kept him aroused.
I remembered to unmute.
And stimulated, quote, "but not the cause. It does desensitize a person," unquote. Meaning that the more you watch of something, you can also get accustomed to it. Maybe this is going on with all of us. The more you hear about what he did, day one it's very shocking. Maybe by week two, we're all becoming desensitized to.
It's over there. McCann said it was over. Venmo. Travel Venmo.
Somebody in the...
He said he did.
Excuse me, since
Continue?
I didn't understand what he said, I don't make any motion. We can continue.
I couldn't really make out what he was saying either. Somebody in the gallery is being escorted out.
Travel Venmo.
Interesting.
He said he did.
Excuse me, since
Continue?
I didn't understand what he said, I don't make any motion. We can continue.
If anybody did, they should disregard it. Go ahead.
He said he did not watch any videos or magazines depicting homicidal behavior. He said the most violent material we ever saw was, quote, "playful bondage in pictures. I'm not into anything sadistic, tying, whipping, or burning," unquote. He then said that this happened to him one time. He was passed out from drinking and, quote, "hog-tied," unquote. The man that picked him up was sticking a candle, quote, "you know where," unquote. And this burned Mr. Dahmer's thigh.
That's crazy.
The scar eventually left, and this happened while on pass from work release. He said he always had the fear of getting caught by the police. He knew he was engaging in criminal and illegal behavior. Quote, "The desire was strong enough that it didn't matter. Desire warps your thinking that you can't find any peace or rest," unquote. When asked what was so pleasurable to keep on doing this, he said, quote, "to feel their body and physique and masturbate and have an orgasm," unquote. He said he worked during those 2 years, and all this activity was weekend behavior. During the week at home, he would watch videos, use the pictures he had taken, masturbate using the skulls, and do disposal or cleanup work. Sometimes he would do cleanup work on weekends. And that was the end of that interview.
When was the next time that you met with Mr. Dahmer?
on December 20th, 1991.
Do you recall where that was, or do your notes indicate where that was?
That was at the Columbia Correctional Institution and lasted from 11:30 to 4:30 for 5 hours.
Is that a facility somewhat north of Madison, the city of Madison?
Yes, it's a short hour north of Madison.
And you drove up there that day and arrangements were made and you met with Mr. Dahmer, is that correct?
That's true.
Were you alone or was there some guard in attendance, if you recollect?
There were guards in the hallway, but
The room in which you met?
No, it was private.
Just you and Mr. Dahmer met?
I'm telling you like
That's the way it always was.
baby.
I'm sorry?
That's the way it always was. I was always alone with him. There were guards either in this building or at Columbia Correctional. There was a personnel in the hallway.
Okay. And then you also undertook then to interview him in the same fashion that you had earlier interviewed. Is that correct?
That's true.
And you have notes of that interview with you?
That's true.
Would you proceed telling the jury about it?
Again, certainly part of the impetus for this interview was that the previous interview certainly was more of a general nature, and I had not specifically obtained a comment or statement from him about each of the cases, which I felt was necessary, because considering he was being charged with these cases, and at least for my report and trial, I should at least have a comment from him on each of the victims.
The first two paragraphs relate to discussions about procedures that were underway, various legal measures. Is that correct?
That's true.
And would you then start with the third paragraph?
He said over the years he has forgotten the names of some of the victims, and they would just use their first names. Quote, "It was standard procedure to keep things impersonal. Don't ask a lot of personal questions, just small talk," unquote. He said there were 3 victims at grandmother's, and 3 individuals were not killed there, but left from her residence. When asked how he felt after the Dock Stater homicide, he said he was, quote, "surprised that I was doing it again. It fueled my desire. It was too late to stop. It was on my mind during the week to pick up and keep them permanently. I was in too deep of trouble, so it didn't matter. I think that's accurate. Too far past that point." And he denied attempts to stop or self-reform at that point. And I asked him about that, and he implied that, pretty much like he said, once you can get so deep into trouble that more crimes, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm past that point.
That was the Dock Stater incident. This is the first incident after the Twomey incident. Is that correct?
That's true. And he said he was in too deep of trouble, so it didn't matter. And with that attitude, I think this is a contributing factor which facilitated his continuing. If you think this way and one more bank robbery doesn't matter, I'll keep on doing them. I can't get into any more trouble, so to speak. We then talked about Richard Guerrero.
This was the victim that followed Mr. Dock Stater. It's the second one at the grandmother's house. Is that correct? Second where life was actually taken at the grandmother's house.
Met him at the entrance to the Phoenix Bar on Water Street. Had not seen him before. Guerrero was leaving the bar. Mr. Dahmer had a 6-pack with him, and it was closing time. Said it was on the, quote, spur of the moment, unquote. They got together, approached him and talked about sex in the video, offered him money, but did not pay him.
Update on the poll. After 36 votes so far, if you haven't voted, go vote. It's very important. If you didn't see it, I guess don't vote because you didn't truly see it. But actually, I guess I should have explained it even further. Earlier, it sounded like there was a fart, but it could have been a chair. But it seems like it was more probable that it was actually someone blowing their nose. But for the original voting, though, with 36 votes, we're at 92% think that it was a fart and 8% chair. I'm still going to go with a fart.
Was Hispanic, about 5'10", and appeared, quote, attractive, unquote.
Update, baby.
Said he asked him only because he was attractive. Said he would not have approached him if he was fat or bald. The two of them took a bus to grandmother's, and he was feeling, quote, fairly drunk, unquote. Said he drank from about 10 until 2 a.m. And then I asked him what his evening routine was, and he said before 10 o'clock he would be, quote, relaxing, unquote, at home. He did not go out from 7 to 11 because some individuals would not be wanting to leave at that time. So at home, so therefore, if you start at 10 to 2, then you're, if you want to take somebody home, you adjust your schedule so that you have to start later. If you start earlier, then you're at the bar too long and no one's leaving at 11. He did not go out from 7 to 11 because some individuals would not be wanting to leave at that time. At home, he and Guerrero took their clothes off, laid on the bed together for about an hour. He said he kept the sound down low so he would not wake up grandmother, and I'm not sure what sound he was talking about. They were upstairs in his bedroom. They went downstairs and made a coffee and Irish cream mix and added 4 or 5 tablets, gave it to Guerrero, and he drank it and fell asleep. Guerrero said he had to leave about 5 a.m. And Mr. Dahmer did not go to sleep, said he found this individual very attractive and knew that he would kill him to, quote, keep him permanently, unquote. Grandmother would wake up around 7 a.m. and go to church around 11:50 a.m. Took Mr. Guerrero to the basement that morning and, quote, before she came back, grandmother from church, unquote, before she came back, unquote, I'm referring to grandmother coming back from church. He did not dispose of Doc Stater for about 1 week, but he did Guerrero right away. Quote, it was too big of a risk to keep him all week, unquote. Too big of a risk to keep Guerrero there in the house all week. He kept the skull and used Soilix at grandmother's that morning. Prompt disposal of Guerrero. Said it was, quote, too stressful having Doc Stater there all week, and he was worried about being discovered, which reflects the appreciation of wrongfulness issue. He kept Guerrero because he was, quote, very attractive, unquote. He disposed of the body in 2 hours, 3 25-pound bags, flesh and bones, triple bagged, put in the Monday morning trash. And he said that Monday morning he watched from his bedroom window to make sure nothing went awry, unquote. Meaning he watched the trash pickup. When asked, he said he was concerned about the parts being discovered later in the trash. But, well, quote, but there is so much tonnage, and apparently that worked, unquote, meaning that there's so much trash picked up that the Monday morning system was effective, and he never got in trouble for doing it that way. He usually drank less at grandmother's, Irish cream and coffee only. She did not have liquor in the home. He had Irish cream.
Got to take it a little easy at Granny's. You know, light murder, light drinking. Calm down slightly with Grandma.
In his closet. He knew
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
he would only be able to use his sexuality. He knew he would only be able to use him sexually after he was killed for a few hours, talking about Guerrero, because grandmother would be getting up. He got up with her that Sunday morning. The body was left on his bed in his bedroom. He had breakfast with grandmother, and she never went into his bedroom. And he said, quote, to be with her and appear normal, unquote. He said he was, quote, halfway drunk, unquote. This is earlier in the evening. 6 to 8 beers at the bar. He felt sober the next morning, however. He kept the skull, cut up his clothes into small pieces, put them in the trash Monday morning. He used the body for sexual purposes until grandmother woke up that Sunday morning. He masturbated while he looked at the body and touched the body, and there was no anal sex. He said, quote, knew it was horribly dangerous, was taking a horrible risk, but the desire was there and no other source of satisfaction in my life, unquote. He admitted that there was some mental struggle as to whether or not to take Guerrero's life. He later moved into his 24th Street efficiency apartment for 2 months. He met the Laotian, took pictures of him for $50, pictures in his underwear, and gave him the sleeping potion. He did not fall asleep, and the victim left and went home and possibly passed out at home, and then later told his parents. Mr. Dahmer was arrested around 1 a.m. and spent 6 hours in the county jail. The police...
6 days, I think it's 6 days.
6 days in the county jail. The police searched his apartment, and they did not find the skull. And he said he only had one skull there, Guerrero. He admitted to me that he was, quote, holding his breath, unquote, that he's worried about the police, them finding something, and he was worried about, quote, a second search, unquote. One skull was the only concern he had about what the police might find. He was later placed on bond and moved back in with his grandmother. He was charged with enticing a child for immoral purposes, and after being on bond, he then disposed of the skull and said, quote, it was too dangerous to keep it, meaning to get discovered. He was then examined by Dr. Lodell. He went on trial and was sentenced to 1 year with work release. 3 months later, he started his 1 year at the Huber dorm. During those 3 months, he met Anthony Sears.
Is this the 3 months before the preceding his sentencing date?
From what I recall, this is what, 3 months before he starts his work release and 3 months after Guerrero. Is that correct?
About.
A gay bar on 2nd and National at closing time, when asked, said that during that time he still had desires during the 3 months interlude, but there was too much, quote, legal activity going on, so he just used pornography and videotapes, and so at least he was exercising some restraint during that time, but did not find that.
We've got an entire day with this psychiatrist, it looks like, again. Yeah. I think next week we will be changing it up, but very detailed. Again, anybody that's been watching this with us for 13 weeks now realizes, what we're in for here, and it's a lot of the same discussion, but different experts that have discussed and gotten their own reports that they are now reading out. So there's slight differences here and there, but a lot of the same, but brutal still.
That fulfilling. On the way out of the tavern around 2:30 in the morning, he started up a conversation with Sears. Quote, he was very willing to go back, and quote, got a ride in Sears' friend's car. Sears was black. He said race did not matter, quote, just so they're good looking. Color does not make any difference, unquote. He said had he not found anybody attractive, he just would then have gone home. He got a ride with Sears' friend. Mr. Dahmer and Sears were in the back seat. Sears was giving Mr. Dahmer a blowjob in the back seat. They were both, quote, fairly drunk, unquote. They got out of 57th and Lincoln, I think, and walked 2 blocks to grandmother's house. He would ask his victims how long they could stay. Sears said he had to be back by 7 a.m. He said Sears was very, quote, special, unquote. Made him coffee and Irish whiskey in the kitchen, and then went to the bedroom and they, quote, played around, unquote, kissing and masturbation. Sears passed out, and then he was strangled. Mr. Dahmer strangled him with his hands. He said he wanted a, quote, memento, a keepsake, unquote. Then I asked him, and he agreed that he had a disregard for their life. He said he would not have done it had he known them. They were strangers to him.
Yeah, this is a lot for this guy. I mean, he clearly doesn't want to read certain parts. He's actually not read some things, and then one of the attorneys will say, hey, wait, you've skipped something, because they're reading right along with him, and they want to make sure it's all out there. But, I mean, it's a fuck ton, man. It's a lot.
Quote,
and this guy's got to go home this night and, live his normal-ish life, right? Try to forget about this. It's a lot, man, on somebody.
I blanked it out of my thinking, the ultimate in selfishness, not considering someone else, unquote. Then I asked him further, and he implied that selfishness has always been a trait of his, but not perhaps a, quote, blatant, unquote, trait, just in my thought processes, unquote. He could not give me any particular historical examples about how he was particularly selfish with other people. We discussed the choice balance between his sexual pleasure and the individual's life. He strangled Sears and left him on the bed. Grandmother got up and later went to church, laid with Sears for about 1 hour and had anal intercourse. He said a dead victim was not as good as a live one. Quote, the best you could hope for under these circumstances, unquote. He agreed that he had been living in his apartment, that had he been living in his apartment, he might have tried to keep a relationship with Sears going. Quote, he was very special, unquote. So that tells me that perhaps he might have been able to refrain from killing some of these people if he could have started a relationship with them, and that the possibility of a relationship would have facilitated his control, and he would have been able to refrain. Grandmother was gone about 4 hours. It was Easter time. He used the body, kept the skull with flesh on it, preserved the head in a bucket of acetone, bought the acetone on Monday for this purpose, quote, to dress down, unquote, the flesh and keep it preserved. He had called a taxidermist and asked how to preserve a rabbit head. He soaked the skull in solution for 1 week after the brain was removed, and he said this was hard to do. And he talked about removing the first vertebrae and how he removed the contents of the skull, and that he worked on it all Monday in his bedroom, but, quote, made sure the bedroom door was locked, unquote, when he went to work on the 3rd shift. He kept the skull with the flesh on it for 1 week in a bucket in the closet. He then drained off the acetone and said the skull and flesh were preserved well. He kept it out of solution for 1 week, dried it out, would masturbate when he looked at it, also preserved the penis and testicles. And he said, when asked, the size of the penis was not important to him. He said this particular skull later became, quote, mummified, unquote. He kept it and bought a cosmetic case and put the skull in the case. He eventually had to start his work release program, so he put the case in his locker at work, and it was there for 9 months. A combination locker. He did not worry about somebody finding the head because he had a combination lock. When asked, he said as long as the trash was picked up on a Monday, and he's still at grandmother's, he worried less. And he said that if the trash bags were at the curb for several days and there was a later in the week pickup at grandmother's, that would have caused him problems. He said Sears was, very, quote, very nice looking, unquote. When asked, said the genitals were, quote, for a keepsake for display purposes, unquote, at his apartment. He mentioned having bought a, quote, black lacquered podium, unquote, in his bedroom. He did not have any guests, and he agreed it would have been rather shocking to see a penis and testicles on display. After finishing his work release, he did not see the suitcase for 9 months. A Sears skull became moldy. He cleaned the flesh out and kept the skull and genitals. And when asked, he agreed that the skull and the genitals were more for, quote, historical, unquote, interest. The genitals were not used for stimulation or masturbation purposes. Instead, he would go to bookstores for magazines and videos for stimulation purposes. He said he spent thousands on quote, on pornographic materials, again suggesting a possible contributory influence on his behavior. He said he was able to keep the various victims fairly separate. In his discussion, when asked, he said Sears was, quote, one of the best so far in the top 3, unquote, and Sears was the last victim at grandmother's residence. He then made the comment that, quote, "I've never heard voices. I want to purge myself of everything," meaning confess to everything. He said that he was sentenced to his work release program about a month after killing Sears. When asked what he was doing with his desires during that time, he said that he was just using pornography, saw some other men, but did not find them attractive, so he did not approach them. Again, the screening function of being attractive. He continued to go out, this is before starting work release, and went to the Chicago bath clubs, but only for one-night stands. He then said that, quote, the quote, ideal situation, unquote, would have been to have a, quote, a home and a regular lover, unquote, reflecting again that the tragic substitute patterns he was into were what I would consider substitute sexual behavior, not his first choice. Then clarified a misunderstanding that I had and said that most of the gay people do have a steady lover, but that he did not. And he described himself as, quote, pretty much of a loner in the middle of a crowd, unquote, in the crowd of his other gay men. Said that he was somewhat in the, quote, middle, unquote, as far as desirability goes, was not considered completely undesirable, and was approached by other men, was also not considered the best catch. I asked what the, quote, best catches for him would have been, and he said male dancers, quote, the best looking, the Chippendale look, unquote, and he informed me that these were the touring male strippers for ladies' shows. He said, quote, looks are everything. I was very shallow in my desires, unquote, and then again said that the majority of gay men are paired off. At the bars, said he would drink and scan, quote, scan the crowd, unquote. He did not dance, he did little talking. When asked, he said he had friends at work, but did not go out with them, did not have any social life, just the bars and the bathhouses. Admitted that he was feeling lonely, agreed that had more interaction with people, he might have had less homosexual, homicidal urges. This reflects on his personality makeup, this paragraph, that he certainly has trouble forming relationships, tends towards social withdrawal, has what we call schizoid, S-C-H-I-Z-O-I-D, personality disorder traits. Later in my interview, and we discussed that perhaps had he been more into bonding with people, forming relationships, that none of this might have happened. After being released from work release, he lived back at grandmother's for a few months, and he did not commit any more homicides. Then moved into a new apartment for a couple months and continued going to bars. He was in the release program, work release program, from about 689 to 390. Was at grandmother's again for 3 months, and then moved into his own apartment in the summer of 1990. When asked about the apparent lapse between victims Sears and Smith, he said that during that, quote, dry spell, unquote, he continued to engage in pornography and attend bath clubs, only in Chicago, one-night stands, no more homicides, and said that he was not going to get into this type of behavior again until he had his own apartment. So he was waiting on that. He was refraining from any further such behavior until he had a place of his own.
That period stretched from the slaying of Sears from March 26, 1989 until at or about May 20th of 1990, which is just a few days short of 14 months. Would you comment on that in connection with the issue relating to control?
Well, draw whatever inferences you want. It's certainly his sexual maladjustment disorder was certainly there, and he certainly had the interests were there, but he had the capacity to refrain and control and to wait. 2 months later, in the summer of 1990, he met Raymond Smith, or quote, Cash D, unquote, a black man, quote, attractive, a male hustler, unquote. Met after closing time, offered him money. Smith was waiting to get picked up. Told Dahmer he was a male hustler, not gay. Told Dahmer, quote, if no money, no sex, unquote. Mr. Dahmer offered him $50. Smith wanted $100. And Smith agreed to wait to get money until Mr. Dahmer could get money from the bank the next day. Gave Mr. Smith the drink mixture. He then said that about a month prior to this, he got his coffee cups mixed up, and that he, Mr. Dahmer, drank the drug coffee and passed out, and then was robbed of $300. And he said, quote, the tables were turned, unquote. And he had used about 5 tablets in that particular concoction. Getting back to Smith, he was passed out, strangled him and laid with him for a few hours, put him on the black table, took about 20 pictures, did not consider trying to get him to remain voluntarily because he knew he was not gay and not interested in a relationship. Quote, that was my modus operandi at that time. No struggle, referring to, I asked about, was there any struggle mentally killing him? No struggle. My conscience was seared, S-E-A-R-E-D, unquote. Then implied that his conscience was, quote, seared, unquote, after the ambassador case, and said he drank 151 proof with that victim, Mr. Tomey, and had no intentions of killing that victim.
I'm a hustler, baby.
In regard to Cash D, said there was no particular internal struggle about killing him. Quote, just that area of my conscience that had no rule, R-U-L-E, at all. I just viewed them as objects. It made it easier. There was no malice at all. I didn't hate them. Otherwise, I would have tortured them. I tried to make it as painless as possible, unquote. So what we're talking about here is that his conscience, and I take his word for it, is becoming impaired. His sensitivity and values are becoming eroded because of what he's been doing. He said there was always some sort of sexual contact before the strangling, and he said the strangling was a means to an end. Afterwards, he felt a sense of control and power. Quote, I could do whatever I wanted with them, and I didn't have to worry about what they were going to do, referring to leaving, etc. So again, reflecting on his motive for killing them. He had control of the situation, and he didn't have to worry about providing sexual reciprocation.
Would you skip the next paragraph?
Yes, I will.
I'm sorry.
He took pictures of Cash D on the table, 2 days of this.
Did you skip a sentence or two from that paragraph? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
No, I was going to skip that whole paragraph myself.
Good.
Took pictures of Cash D on the table, 2 days of this. Took him to the bathroom, did the defleshing and dismembering. The first one at his apartment, his third apartment. Put the flesh in trash bags and said there was a, quote, huge, unquote, dumpster in the back of the apartment building, quote, so I didn't worry about the pickup day, unquote. In the confession, there's mention made that even though there was a huge dumpster, he apparently still hid the bag in the dumpster. Besides just having a big dumpster, he also specially located the bag in the dumpster. He wanted to keep the skeleton. He bought a large 80-gallon kettle at a restaurant supply store for cleaning the bones. He said he did not bury the remains. You know, I asked him why he didn't just bury the remains, and he said because of the apartment setting, meaning he lives in an apartment building and he doesn't have a big backyard type thing, or he doesn't live in the country. He used 4 boxes of Soilex and would boil the bones for a few hours and then rinse off the bones. They were very clean afterwards, and all the bones became unattached. He bought the Soilex at a hardware store. He had asked the taxidermist before and was told about.
Yeah, Megsy, what did they skip, I wonder? That's a good question considering everything we've heard, right? They are not afraid to go down any road, how vulgar it is, how violent it is, how crazy it is so far. So what the hell would they have thought? We're going to skip this part. How bad could it have actually been? Very good question, Maxie.
Soilex. Put the bones in a
I'm interested
container,
as well.
soak them in a bleach solution for about a day, then put them in the closet for a month to dry out. He had all the bones and was hoping to reassemble them. He said the body remained unusable for about 3 days. I'm sorry, remained usable for about 3 days for sexual purposes. He worked the Monday 11 p.m. shift. He then returned home to get some sleep and continued to do the boiling work. And he agreed with me that he was getting quite proficient. He said the cash D case ended with a box of bones. The next case was Edward Smith, the quote Sheik unquote, in summer of 1990.
The nickname by which Mr. Smith was known, Sheik?
Sheik. Saw him at the Phoenix Bar around 1 a.m. Smith was dancing and, quote, caught my eye. I approached him and he was very willing, unquote. Took a taxi back to his apartment, did not know his real name, was called the Sheik because he wore a turban, never saw him before, quote, tall and nice looking, unquote. Gave him the mixture and strangled him. Took some pictures, quote, the same scenario, unquote. A week before, said he bought a floor freezer at a certain store in a certain mall to store bones that had flesh on them in case he was too tired to clean them afterwards. In the police confession, he also stated that the freezer was used in part to store parts for a while so that he would not dispose of a whole body at one time, but would dispose of the parts in smaller portions over time. He did not tell me that. He used the body for sexual purposes for a few days, and no anal intercourse with Cash D or the Sheik. Defleshed in the bathtub, cleaned the bones, second box in a hallway closet with the skulls. I then asked him about the camera, maybe being okay. And he said he bought a certain brand. He gave me the brand of an Instamatic Polaroid. He did not own a camera before, but he bought it before the Cash D case. He said Cash D was the first to be photographed. He used a Polaroid camera so that he would not have to send the film out for processing. Quote, I didn't want to take the chance, unquote, meaning of being discovered through prints being processed. Bought the camera.
Does this have application to the wrongfulness issue?
Very definitely. Bought the camera 2 months after Sears. Said that having their bodies for sexual purposes was quite fulfilling. Quote, I could keep something and enjoy the control and the contact and not have to rush like in a bathhouse, unquote.
The next line you should not read, okay?
True. So again,
The next
control and to be able to control the circumstances of the lovemaking and not have to rush like in a bathhouse. Then mentioned LP.
The next person is being referred to as a minor as LP.
Fine.
Would you be kind enough to just go back right after when Mr. McCann says, don't read the next line, and read that answer, please?
Quote, I could keep something and enjoy the control and the contact and not have to rush like in a bathhouse, unquote.
That's what you said, and then Mr. McCann said, don't read the next line, and then you said something else, and that's not written down, and that's...
Oh, I said I was not going to anyway.
I think you said something after that, too.
I have taken some editorial liberty here, but that I was going to...
I don't have any problems with what you...
No, that's fine.
I just didn't hear it. Would you
That's
read
fine.
the next thing I said after that man report, if they're well?
I think this is what you want. Mr. McCann says, the next line you should not read, okay? Answer true. So again, controlling, to be able to control the circumstances of the lovemaking and not have to rush like in the bathhouse.
That next name, again, is a juvenile, so if you'd use the reference to LP.
And then mentioned LP. 1 month later, Hispanic, 15 years old, but he thought he was older. A busboy at the particular tavern, had seen him before. And after closing time, offered him money, then took a cab back to the apartment, quote, laid around, unquote, for about 3 hours. LP said he would meet him the next evening. He had to get home early before his mother woke up. He did not give LP the drink mixture. He agreed to meet him at 12 noon. So this is an individual that was let go because of future plans. LP was not there, and then Mr. Dahmer returned at 12 midnight, and he was there. So there was some confusion over the meeting time. He had bought a rubber mallet at an Army surplus store. They returned to the apartment, and pictures were taken. He did not know how to keep him. He had him lie on his stomach for a pose, hit him in the back of the neck with a rubber mallet to knock him out, and he was going to try the mallet instead of sleeping pills. It did not work, and LP got dressed and threatened to call the police and left. LP returned later and asked for money to use the phone. There was a phone 3 blocks away. Mr. Dahmer thought he was going to call the police, asked Mr. Dahmer for a couple dollars change. Mr. Dahmer assumed he was going to call the police, so he grabbed him in and or near the apartment doorway. He admitted that he attempted to strangle and kill him at that moment. He did not want LP to call the police. Then they started talking, and he talked him out of calling the police, he said, which, you know, they're talking police, they're talking wrongfulness. Obviously, wrongfulness is on his mind. Mr. Dahmer then walked him to a cab stand at 7 a.m. and gave him some cab money home. Said LP did call the police, but told the police that he was hit on Water Street and carried back to the apartment. The police did not believe him. And Mr. Dahmer was never questioned, was not charged, and he agreed with me that he, quote, lucked out, unquote, period. Found the next individual at the 27th Street bookstore, did not recall his name. I think it's Mr. Ernest Miller. True?
Yes, sir.
At 3 a.m.
I love seeing shit like this right here. Make sure my mic's working. I am not T-Pain. Y'all are so kind and welcoming. This channel and community is really nice. Thank you all, for real. It's awesome. And PubliclyBuzzed, good job, my dude. Thank you, man. I think more people are going to see what we're doing here. Not only here at PubliclyBuzzed, the Shaming of Jay, the Fence Diaries. You know, we got a whole crew that is changing the game in the true crime community, quite frankly. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of it. Thank you for being here, though, seriously. I'll look through the chat here for just a second. It's awesome, man. Thank you. So cool to see shit just like that right there. And everybody that's come through here, this has been another really successful murder church. Yeah, appreciate you. Anybody that takes a moment of their Sunday to come through here is absolutely amazing. Unbelievable. Does anybody want to watch another crazy clip I just found on Twitter here? Trigger warning. It's nothing too graphic. It ends insane, but get the sound on it. Then I'll have to remember to get the sound back on Dahmer. I always fuck that up. That bitch's face was on fire! That poor lady! She was just an innocent bystander! Dude! Her face is on fire! What the fuck? Shit went sideways quick.
After closing time, he was on his way to the bookstore to buy some pornography, then said he was involved with more white men than black men.
Son of a bitch! Hold on. I'm looking at the chat, though. I even said, don't forget the trial. Let me go back 1 full minute. I don't think it was that long even, so we're good. We're good. Got about right there. We're good.
Then said he was involved with more white men than black men. He approached Miller on the street, offered him money, quote, tall and muscular, unquote. Miller agreed and Mr. Dahmer knew he would kill him. Gave him the drink mixture. Then he said he did not have any pills available in regard to LP.
Son of a bitch!
But since the LP episode, he had made an appointment with his doctor, said he couldn't sleep, and obtained a small refill, only 2 or 3 tablets. He did not know Miller was from Chicago, returned to the apartment, and only had 3 pills. Miller became slightly drugged, found Miller, quote, definitely attractive, unquote, and wanted to keep him. He used a knife and punctured the carotid artery. Quote, he was unconscious, comma, but if I tried to strangle him, he would have woken up, 1 neat stab wound, and died quickly, unquote. Stabbed him on his bed, much blood on the bed, most of the blood soaked in between the mattresses. And he talked about cleaning it and throwing out the sheets. And he said he wanted him because he was, quote, so attractive, unquote. Took pictures on the table in various poses and would use these pictures for masturbation purposes later. And then I asked him, and he said his pictures were as good, if not better, for masturbation purposes than the ones he bought.
All right, just so everybody knows, I believe YouTube chat fucked up here for a minute. No one's been blocked or anything crazy like that. Ever so often, and at least once a stream now, especially the longer ones. Everybody's familiar with Jay's channel, who streams all day. The YouTube chat for $1 billion company, they can't get their shit straight. So yeah, they should reset or be fine, maybe refresh. But yeah, I can't even see anything happening right now.
So the body was useful for about 3 days. Kept the body on the bed or on the table when he was at work.
Again, useful for what purpose would the body be useful?
For sexual purposes. Said he would have a normal night of work. He got his job done. When I asked him about if this was interfering with his work. And he agreed with me that he was certainly leading a double life. He said that killing, quote, got so routine, unquote, that he was able to concentrate on his work. Again, this is an attitude, this is a desensitization, and certainly helps explain why he killed them. He said that, quote, on purpose, he did not ask them who they were so that he would not get to know them, quote, so that they were objects, unquote. Let's see who we're on. We're still talking about Miller. After the 3rd night, he took the body to the bathroom, did half the dismembering, and then had to go to work. The next morning, the manager stopped him in regard to a complaint about a bad smell. The police were called and checked the wrong apartment. Said the police had actually kicked in the wrong door trying to find the smell. Because of this, he then finished his cleanup job before he went to work that night. Then he said he kept various organs and muscles. He rinsed them off for later consumption, and he put them in clean bags. The first time he had ever done this. He said he did this out of, quote, curiosity to see what they tasted like, unquote. Later felt that after eating them, they then became, quote, part of me, unquote. Then he described the various parts he kept, and he said he put them in gallon freeze bags, 50 to 75 bags, 1 to 2 pounds per bag. First time he'd ever done this. There was nothing in the freezer before, but now the freezer was full. 3 boxes with bones.
Shelly coming through gifting a membership, and you know, the membership gifts are always random, and I love who got it. It looks like it was a lurker. Coffin Daffer Sucks. I can say that because that's their name. And I would just say it. Coffin Daffer Sucks. Shelly Tarbert, thank you very much. Welcome them, ladies and gentlemen. Give them some love right here. But you're going to get that one anyways. Welcome to the party, pal. Crack one open. Boom. Give it up. Give it up. And I am not T-Pain going to be coming into a membership as well. I'm going to go and give it to you. Boom. Party, and you're going to love it here. I can already tell you loving it. You're digging it. Good stuff.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
Oh, yeah. Look at these bears. Look at these bears. Thanks, you, Shelly. Appreciate it. Good stuff. Yeah, thank you, Cammie, for popping that link in there. I need to get that on command as well, and I don't.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep rolling. We got about another 17 minutes left of this clip. It's about 12:15, so this will probably wrap us up for this edition of Murder Church. And yeah, we'll go rock and roll for the rest of the Sunday. I got a few things that I got to do. I'm going to continue to work in this studio here. And continue to get that ready for, future streams. Just looking through the chat here real quick. Yeah, I see them beers. Thank you guys so much. It's awesome. Another successful edition of Murder Church.
We're now in the closets. He said he prepared about 6 meals with the body parts. And then said that about 1 month before his arrest, he threw out about 50 pounds worth of the bags because he had lost his job and did not have any money and would have to move out, and thus was doing house cleaning and had to get rid of the parts. He then mentioned painting the skulls, Miller's, Cashty's, and Sears, 3 skulls, painted them in artificial color in case anyone saw them. One individual from Chicago, one of the victims, did see the skulls, and Mr. Dahmer said they were artificial. The next individual was David Thomas. Black, met it on the streets, did not know his name, while waiting for a bus, 1 in the morning, offered him money.
Shit, Missy Mayhem, gonna throw a little bit into the pot here as we come to an ending. We still got a little bit of time left, but yeah, thank you, Missy, coming in. Thanks for the amazing content, Pastor Steve. Appreciate it, Missy. Thank you so much. $5, baby. Let's give her some love. I'm a bad man. Oh shit, there it is. I am T-Pain. Welcome to being a buzzed and confused level publicly buzzed member. Buzz Nation, let's go. Boom, beers in the chat, everybody. Welcome him with open arms. He's been awesome as hell today. New member to the family. Give you a little bit of this, give you a little bit of that. Hold on.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
Love it. Love it.
That's a fantastic man.
A little bit of
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck you do that?
just a little bit of my new clips here. I just wanted to play. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Hope you stick around. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you come through. It's going to be a good show. Going to be having Bob Mata, defense attorney, host of Defense Diaries podcast, and also Dr. Turtleboy coming in from, from just being a badass and a catalyst and getting the word out there in the Karen Reed case, and is making that currently go viral. And it's going to be a good show tomorrow. Tangled Crochet coming in right behind with $5. Thank you, Tangled. That's amazing as well. Holy shit. Keep hitting it. I'm a bad man. So good. Love it. Thank y'all so much. Church rocking and rolling, baby. Jamie, thank you for being in here modding up. Cammy, thank you for being here modding up. Everybody, making another Absolutely banger episode. Megxit, he was contemplating whether to destroy the skulls and all of the evidence or not just before he was caught. Imagine if he had done it. Yeah. And then we just left when he was saying he was painting the skulls, right? He wanted to, again, that's when you come back, it's an insanity trial. But I mean, at the end of the day, he was making moves to hide what he was doing. Like, that's why I have a hard time saying he would be better off in what they're doing here in 1992 back in time again, going into a mental institution instead of a prison. I would prefer this motherfucker to be in a prison personally. Good stuff. It's going to be good, Heather. Good stuff. Thank y'all so much.
Sexually propositioned him.
It's a banger.
Usually after making a pass, the person agreed, quote, a hit or miss, unquote, situation was sometimes turned down at bars. Then I asked him, he's talking about making passes on the streets. And then I asked him, he said, he said he was never hit by a person on the street after a pass. And a few times he was told to scram, etc. One time he was hit with a beer can and knocked out and kicked in the ribs. And he said this happened at his second apartment. And I asked him about this, and he said after his arrest for enticing a child, he moved out of his second apartment and was living with grandmother. He thought his former apartment would be empty, so he went back there with this individual, but someone had moved in. So he went to the basement of the apartment building with this individual, and while there he was attacked with a beer can. He was hospitalized overnight and had stitches in his head. Mr. Dahmer had stitches in his head. He told the police he was mugged. And I asked him about any other repercussions from his behavior, and he said the second time he was ever attacked was while on work release, and he did not go home for Thanksgiving dinner because, quote, he was too embarrassed to go home, unquote. His relatives were there, including his father. Instead, he went to bars and drank nearly a whole bottle of Yukon Jack and was, quote, extremely drunk, unquote. He was picked up by an older man, and they went to this older man's apartment, and then he, Mr. Dahmer, was, quote, hog-tied, unquote, and the other individual engaged in, quote, strange sexual bondage acts, unquote, with Mr. Dahmer. Mr. Dahmer started yelling and was let down and ran off and returned to the Huber dorm, quote, very drunk and very late. He was kept back from work for 2 days because of being late.
This was an aside that he went into as you were discussing the David Thomas case with him. Is that true?
That's true.
And it went back in time, this aside where he related that he had been victimized himself a couple of times. He's going back in time what was transpiring earlier before the Thomas case. Is that accurate?
True.
And then you resumed discussing the Thomas case with him.
Yes.
Did he feel, did he express from how he had been victimized, particularly the man that had hog-tied him, and did he express anger at that happening or give any expression of...
Yes, I think he was quite upset with that individual.
That the man had done that to him?
Yes.
You then continued talking, you resumed the discussion about David Thomas, is that correct?
They returned to Mr. Dahmer's apartment, gave Mr. Thomas a drink mixture, strangled him. Quote, same scenario, which were Mr. Dahmer's words, unquote. Then changed his routine. He said, quote, I wanted to cut down on the chances of anyone discovering me, unquote. So he then bought 2 heavy-duty trash barrels with a cap in the cover to pour in the acid. He did save Thomas's skull, said it was a, quote, safer way to dispose of the remains, unquote. And if I remember correctly here, it was kind of shifting from a trash bag program to a acidification program. Said all previous bones were kept for later reassembly. Later, quote, acidified, unquote, some sets of the bones, but kept the best set. And he called this the 27th Street bookstore case, Miller, for assembly. Oh, I then mentioned that he tried to dry out the skulls of Guerrero and the sheiks, 120 degrees in his oven. The water in the bones popped and spoiled the skulls and, quote, made them crumble, unquote. So
wow, that's wild. Say no to globalism. I just looked it up. Trial was shown on live TV through a local news channel preempting daytime soap operas. Holy shit. That's crazy. Wow, that's interesting.
These 2 skulls away. He said there was nothing left of Thomas's body. He said this was the first time he took a picture of the abdomen split open, and he used the pictures for masturbation purposes. The next individual was Curtis Straughter. After a 2-week vacation, I don't know where he went, saw Straughter at a bus stop near Marquette, approached him, went to bars and drank, returned to the apartment and masturbated and had sex and watched videos. Then mentioned watching the video Exorcist 3, watched it frequently. Quote, I felt so evil and deprived by this time. The movie appealed to me. I related to it. I watched it before I went to bars and brought people back, unquote. Said he did not...
Well, if the word was deprived or depraved, if you recollect.
Well, I've got dictated deprived. I could look at my notes. It might have been depraved.
All right, go ahead.
Said he did not believe he was possessed by the devil, but said he did not understand what he was up to. In other words, being delusional about being possessed by the devil and committing behavior based on the devil made me do it, or this kind of stuff is a potential psychotic explanation for some behavior. So when people start talking about the occult and devils and demons, you want to make sure that it's not a psychotic manifestation.
But he said he was not possessed by the devil.
No, he was just did not believe that.
Oh, Brooklyn just sent $10 via Venmo. Holy shit. Thank you so much, Brooklyn. I seen it come through my phone. I was trying to figure out which one it was on. I didn't see if it was Venmo or Cash App, but hell yeah. Thank you so much, Brooklyn. That's amazing. Show some love right now. Love that. Adding that to the pot. That's amazing.
Strangled Straughter and defleshed him, saved his hands and genitals and kept them in formaldehyde, kept the skull, quote, for mementos and keepsakes, unquote. And he acidified the flesh and the bones, and this was the apparent second acidification procedure. And then I asked him, I commented that he was apparently not interrupted during his routines. He said that the manager once knocked on the door about the smell. He let him in the apartment and showed him the freezer, told the manager that there was spoiled meat, and the manager believed him, said he would take care of it right away. The body parts in the freezer looked like regular meat. Was never interrupted prior to or during the time of killing the victims. Like the phone ringing or something coming to the door. I don't even know if he had a phone. But he was never interrupted during that time. And I asked him what would it have taken to stop him from killing? And he said, quote, to agree to make it permanent, a longer commitment, unquote, again reflecting a relationship. Said the apartment smell was always an issue or concern for him, from the acid barrels and the odor from the trash barrels. Said by Tuesday or Wednesday following the Saturday night, early Sunday morning pickup, he would have to dispose of the parts in the barrels. He understood he would not then be able to pick up somebody the following weekend because of parts being in the barrels, that they might have to soak for a while. Would then substitute by going to the bathhouses in Chicago or use videos or pictures. He said he was also working 6 days a week and was tired. He said it was, quote, a tiring process to buy acid and dismember, time-consuming in the cleanup, unquote. By this time, he was clearly implying to me that the work was getting to him and starting to maybe deter him a little bit. It was clearly a negative drawback with his procedure. He said he would have to buy new acid.
I asked just one point about, in terms of control, what are the implications, if any, in terms of control, that if there's a body there at the house, he can alternatively choose to go to Chicago. Does that have any implications to you in connection with control?
Right, it's a outside contributing factor that If that was the circumstances, then he would exercise control as to when and where he carried out his sexual desires, and if he had, if things were going on at home and it was not timely to do it, then he would wait. He said he would have to buy new acid, 4 gallons for each barrel. Muriatic, the only acid he would purchase, and it worked, and he used it. He once tried sulfuric acid, but it was so strong that it made a cloud in the room and made the barrel hot. I then asked him to kind of summarize the cycle of events that he would go through, and he said that after using the body for sexual purposes, he would then be involved for a couple weeks with the use of the body parts and then the storage and the cleanup. Said he was often, quote, too tired or, quote, didn't have the time, unquote, to find another victim. Again, fatigue and timeliness would allow him to refrain and control himself. During the, quote, interlude, unquote, said he did not have any planned times when he wanted to pick someone up again, just when he had the time, but admitted that the interest and desires were there. The next individual was Errol Lindsay, met on the streets during the daytime, black, quote, nice looking. He did it just for the money, unquote. A couple weeks before, had bought some handcuffs, quote, to avoid a potential struggle, a good safeguard, unquote. Lindsay was not gay, handcuffed his hands, said he, quote, wanted someone to stay around that was alive, unquote. Then he starts another phase. Well, I guess
Had he drugged Mr. Lindsay? Did you understand from the discussion that he had drugged Lindsay before he undertook the next step?
Yes. He used an electric drill and drilled a hole into the top of the skull and brain, filled a syringe with muriatic, M-U-R-I-A-T-I-C, acid. Quote, I didn't want to have to keep killing and just end up with a skull. So finally, the shortcomings of his routine are causing him to think about other alternatives. Did not strangle him, try to drill. Lindsay woke up, and then Mr. Dahmer injected one more time, woke up again, and Lindsay appeared somewhat normal, but said he had a headache. He was not handcuffed. Then gave him the drink mixture and strangled him. Took many pictures. Then said he wanted to save, quote, save something different, unquote. He laid the body on a plastic sheet on the bedroom floor and described how he was able to peel the skin off. He tried to preserve it as another memento, but eventually he had to, didn't work out, and he had to acidify the flesh and the bones and the skin, but he did save the skull. The next individual was Tony Hughes, again met at the 219 Club after closing. Mr. Hughes could not hear. They wrote notes and shared hand signals. Returned to the apartment and gave him the drink mixture. Said he, Mr. Dahmer, was quote, was very drunk, unquote, again reflecting the role of intoxication. So drunk apparently that he did not remember giving him the drink mixture, did not remember strangling him. Implied that he was, quote, pretty drunk. I woke up and he was dead, unquote. Said he was, quote, too tired, unquote, to do any dismemberment. Kept the body in the bedroom and the bathroom floor for 3 days. And when asked, said he had anal intercourse with about half of the victims, quote, just if I was in the mood, unquote. Said he did not like anal intercourse being done to him, but sometimes enjoyed doing it to others or to a body. Next, mentioned Conrek. They met at the mall. Quote, he caught my eye, unquote, propositioned him with $50. Conrek was undecided. Quote, he appeared older to me, did not know. Scratched him.
Right. He did not know that there was a certain relationship that of another individual with whom he had had contact. Is that correct?
True.
If I may advise the jury, that touches on the stipulation which was shared with you the other day, but not publicized.
Returned to the apartment, took 2 pictures, drank, tried the drill and acid technique, meaning drilling a hole and injecting acid into the skull. Later in the evening, wanted some more beer and left the apartment. In the police reports, the statement that Conrack was still passed out, and so Mr. Dahmer decided to go out for a beer. He said he had 1 beer and left at closing time and returned to the apartment.
Referring back to your notes now, you injected a comment from the police confession, and now going
right.
back to your notes. Is
Back
that
to my
correct?
notes.
This is what Mr. Dahmer told you about it.
Yep, had one beer and left at closing time and returned to the apartment. Conrack was on State Street sitting on the curb unclothed. Some women were there, told the woman that he was a friend and that he, Conrack, had walked out of the apartment. The police came. Conrack did not speak English and did not want to go back to the apartment, but the 2 claimed that the 2 policemen took him under each arm and helped him back to the apartment. Inside the apartment, he claimed that the police officers saw the 2 pictures of Conrack in his underwear. Said that Hugh's body was on the floor in the bedroom at the time. Said Conrack was not bleeding through the hole in his head. There was no anal intercourse before he left to get some more beer. Conrack was not bleeding from anywhere when he was outside. The police left, gave Conrack a second injection of acid and killed him. Was disappointed, unquote, that Conrack died and that the injection technique was not successful, meaning that he was trying to keep somebody alive, have a sexual partner that was alive but willing and docile and under his control, but alive so he would not have to bother with the cleanup and killing people. Took some pictures and had anal intercourse. The next day put both Conrack and Hughes in the tub and defleshed them, kept both heads. First time he ever had parts from 2 individuals in the barrels. Said no one was ever suspicious of his buying the acid at the hardware store, $2.50 per gallon. Thought Conrack was about 16 years old. The next individual was Matt.
Yeah, I think before we go on to the next individual, we'll take a recess. Court's in recess.
All right, we're not done. Oh my God, part 4, another hour and 16 minutes with Dr. Frederick Fosdell. Wow, psychiatrist. We'll resume next week. Holy shit, we spent our entire Saturday with this doctor. I mean, I like him. I don't like the lip smacking as much, but I do like this doctor. Ultimately, he seems like a decent guy. Again, thanks everyone for coming out and hanging out today. Again, Murder Church, week 13 in the books, episode 13. Wow, everyone, absolutely another banger day. Everyone that came through, all the new members, thank you very much. Everybody new hanging out in the community, it's going to keep growing. This is the best community out here, period. J Buzz Nation. As soon as this stream ends, you're going to go through a portal and you're going to go into tomorrow, Jay's stream for tomorrow, still on the widower trial. So, yeah, prepare for that. And, yeah, everyone, again, thank you all so much. What an amazing day. Megsy, thank you. Couldn't do this without you. You're one of the best commenters during this entire series so far. Yeah, you know your shit on Jeffrey Dahmer and this trial. Shelly, thank you so much. I am T-Pain. Welcome to the family. Let's go, baby. Give you a little bit of another one of these. Party, pal. Good stuff.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
Good stuff. Good stuff, baby. Good stuff, baby. Thanks for being you, Publicly Buzzed. Thank you all to everyone in the community for being cool and kind. And, I've always said it. Fakes will not make it. Okay, you got to be real out here in these streaming YouTube streets. That's why people grow. That's why you find other real people. Okay, fake fucks find fake fucks. Real people find real people. Thank you guys so much. I will see everyone tomorrow night for an amazing stream. We're going to have Dr. Turtleboy on here. Turtleboy himself is going to be gracing us with his presence as he comes in to talk about the Karen Reed case and incoming trial. And yeah, he knows his shit. We're going to be going through it, talking about it. He's going to be bringing it to you guys, and we're going to have Bob Mata on here as well, who is also knee-deep in this case. And it's going to be good stuff. It's going to be good stuff. Please, 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow time. It's going to be a special presentation, a rare Monday night live stream is going to be coming at you, folks. Thank you all very much. And, yeah, tuck your arms and legs in.